Well, hello everyone. I am Sam, and you are listening to Literacy, where, if all goes well, and we have, fair seas and following wind or whatever, we should get to the end of our Bummel. I don't know that it's, it'll be explained. This adventure, this trip that we've been on, for just a few streams actually. This is only, what did I say, part 5, and yeah. But we have a lot of books to get through, so I'm not going to do too much preamble right now. Yes, hello, welcome in. Ready for bummeling. Yeah, it sounds like an archaic term for something kind of crude, doesn't it? But it's not. It just has that, it's just got that vibe. Angeline, hello, welcome in. And to everyone else, Quack, it's good to see you. Lava, Arian, Lucy's also here. And Anibal. What's up? Yeah, I don't know if I have really too much to get into. Because this is going to be a longer stream, if I'm able to do as much, but I reckon we've got a good chance of it. I was going to split it into 3, although it doesn't break neatly into 3 parts, so kind of the third part will be, again, if all goes according to plan, sort of a break, and then we come back for just a little bit more book. Yeah, we're going to have some more dodgy German pronunciation. And other... I had to look up how to pronounce... And if Google has led me... Well, not Google. No, actually, no, this one was Google, I think. If I've been led correctly on this one, Vosges. Vosges. The Vosges Mountains. I've not heard that said next to the word before, so if I heard people talking about it, I wouldn't have known that was the mountain range that people were talking about, and vice versa. I guess that's what Madonna was on about back in the 80s. But yeah, there's also just, like, there's a lot of noise going on around here outside all day, frankly. There's been... It's kind of a lot going on. It's a good pronunciation, though a bit close to Doge, right? Yes, I'm not sure how to differentiate, but I can Vosges, maybe Vosges, I don't know. We'll see. Frankly, what you get is what comes out of my mouth when I get there in the book. Yeah, there's been a lot of... Just literally had fireworks kicking off for some reason. Do you have your 6th of September fireworks ready to go this evening? Because apparently people near me do, and they thought they'd just send those off, and oh, so many loud cars going far too fast for this area. I'm fast turning into an old man. So, yeah, that's going to be distracting at some point, I'm sure. Just sort of flicking through the pages coming up just to see what sort of notes I'd left myself. There's not imminently, but at some point coming up, there's... I don't know why he suddenly seems to have pivoted into, like, light animal cruelty in this book. There's been a few times and it's like, mate, did we need to talk? Did we need to, like, call the RSPCA? There's a whole bit about an errant dog that will come up. No dogs are seemingly actually harmed in the course of this. And another bit much later on where he kind of really goes into descriptions of violence. So, be briefed, be warned, but don't worry too much. Fireworks are this Wednesday here. Countrywide protests, bring your own mortar. Oh, hell yeah. No, I don't think we're roused enough as a rabble to do any kind of protest fireworks. Cranky middle age comes for us all, doesn't it just? We've got rifle fire. Oh. That's exciting and not at all scary. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's just fireworks here, so, I guess I'll take that over actual guns. Also, I am I'm in a slightly different. This isn't important, but I'm in a slightly different seating position because it's, as I said, it's going to be a long one, so I need to get comfy, and also I've been dealing with a little bit of a bad back the last couple of days, which I don't really know how that will affect things. But if Joey wants to come in, it's probably going to interrupt a little bit more than usual. So yeah, oh, Verona, welcome in. And I did also see was it Kiwi Ranger sneaking in as well. Hello, welcome. Yeah, it's good to see you all. Thank you for turning out for what will hopefully be the last part of this, and then I move on to something else, which I do have picked out, I believe, already, unless I start reading it and it turns out to just be bad. So, Steam really wants you to play Silksong. I mean, I've been enjoying it. It's, if you've not played, if you've not played Hollow Knight, Arian, you can probably pick that up for a song, and see how you feel about that kind of game, the vibe, the gameplay, and so on and so forth. So yeah, yeah. If you do happen to be interested in Silksong, Hollow Knight is a perfectly good place to start, and it's not going to go anywhere. You'll be able to play it later. You do have Hollow Knight but not played it? Yeah. Well, there you go then. Save yourself some money. Tried to play Hollow Knight, so pretty and atmospheric, but you have no patience for it. That's fair. Yeah, I saw. I was watching someone else playing it the other day. Oh wait, no, I think it was someone playing Silksong, but trying to watch while not being spoiled. And yeah, there was a discussion of how the game. It might have been someone else entirely. It doesn't matter. About how like Hollow Knight and even Silksong don't really have ways to like bring the difficulty down. It's like there's a few games in that genre and that style that have gone like, you know what? If you do just want to play through it, see the world, experience the vibes, get the story without all the really difficult combat, then we're just gonna like let you give yourself a giant gun or be invincible and that kind of thing, and let you like tune and customize the difficulty to yourself. If a game doesn't have that, then yeah, it's perfectly valid to just like, nah, not for me. But it's a shame they don't have those sorts of accommodations. Are you going to get back to Hollow Knight? We listen to stream? Hell yeah, Andy. Nice one. Just watch other people play. I was like that. And, well, frankly, will be, continue to be like that with the Soulsborns. I had no inclination to play Dark Souls or others of that kind. But I would happily just sit and watch other people play it. Like, especially if it's a streamer that I regularly watch, he was like, you know what, I'm going to do a Dark Souls run. I'm going to load up Dark Souls 3 and just play through it. Yes. Hell yeah, it's party time. I'm buying snacks. That's always nice. And especially, like, Bloodborne is one that I know I am never going to play. I have no interest in playing Bloodborne. The vibes are immaculate. It's super great. But I do not want to play Bloodborne. So if someone else is playing it, then that's great. I'll sit and watch that. That's fun. Surprised to learn people think Hollow Knight is more than averagely difficult. You thought it was pretty normal, not used to being good at games. It has some difficulty spikes. Yeah, I think it's probably more intimidating than difficult. By like it has I think quite a lot that it asks of the player, which the average player is actually quite capable of accomplishing, but it feels daunting to be presented with. It's like how, you at the start you don't have a map, you are just wandering aimlessly, and it can feel like, I was experiencing this in Silksong yesterday, but you just sort of feel kind of directionless, and you see like, oh, I've got 3 or 4 different exits out of this screen, I don't know which way to go, I'll take this one, but then you're remembering there's a bunch of others, and because you've got no map, you've got no visual reference to mark it, like, okay, I've been this way, I want to go that way. But the game is designed with that in mind, and it's built to be played that way, and so, yeah, there's a little bit of like a trust fall there, where it's like, okay, I'm meant to feel overwhelmed. I'm meant to feel daunted and intimidated by this. And I'm, frankly, I'm meant to go and fight a boss and lose and go back again, and that whole thing. But because you die and you drop your stuff, and it can feel like, no, the game's taking my things away from me. And again, it's completely valid to look at that and just go, yeah, I don't need that stress, bruv. Should come to your house like literally any time. There's an 80% chance Mrs. Pooh will be playing Bloodborne. Fair. Yes. Good. Frustrates you to do the same thing over and over again. Yeah, that's... It was... I think Celeste, was my entry point to games that I had filed away as hard, don't want to play it. Gonna be hard. I don't want to deal with this frustration. That was one. I think I got it for free on Epic, and it was after watching a streamer who I've been watching now for years, Seabats, or Adam Savadan is his name. It's one of Loading Ready Run, and it was watching him play I Want to Be the Boshi, which is a intentionally, deliberately, painfully hard and frustrating game. It is a game that will just kill you and then laugh at you because you died out of nowhere, and it's cruel, it's hard, it's horrible, it's punishing, and it's intended to be that way. And watching him struggle for, I kind of want to say weeks, possibly, against a mid-game boss, like literal hours of just endlessly like load up the game, fight the boss, fail, fight the boss, fail, fight the boss, fail. Just this same constant banging your head against this boss. And every time just getting a little bit closer to beating it, just a little bit further. Not like... Because you get that progress and you get the setback. You're like, you try and you maybe get a little bit better, and then you have a bunch of attempts where you just get wiped instantly, and then you go back and you... That sort of real grindy, iterative process of wearing down this system and learning it and stuff, and then eventually it breaks and you get it and you win. And seeing that just made me go, maybe I want that feeling. Maybe I want to actually struggle against something and overcome it. And went and played Celeste and enjoyed playing Celeste. I was like, oh, this is actually really fun. And kind of as a game about overcoming adversity and, doing the things that you find difficult, it was kind of a good one to start with. And I've not become like, yeah, I'm going to take on every difficult game challenge since then. I've absolutely noped out of plenty of things that I've just gone, nah, it's not for me. But it just made me a little bit more receptive to playing games that I would otherwise go, that looks hard. That looks probably too hard for me. The only game of this genre you've played through and loved were the Ori games. Those are very good. And again, they're not easy games. I certainly remember a number of parts of that which were punishing, and you had to keep doing them again and again until you'd learned it and got it down perfect. Oh yeah, Hades is one that you can like customize and bring towards your own comfort. The less you could tell was difficult, but you guess the Metroidvania brand of difficulty is one that just clicked well with your brain. Yeah, I mean that's also completely fair. I think Metroidvanias are a good time. I mean, there could still be bad ones, but it's there's a reason they're beloved. Anyway, I should actually stop yapping, as the youth say. You still say that, or is it just my generation's picked it up now and you're onto something else? I don't know. I'm going to stop talking, and then I'm going to punch the mic, and then I'm going to start reading. No, don't apologise for the distraction, it's all good. Wow, I need to... okay, good. Find the mute button. Yeah, it works. Good-o. But yeah, if we're ready, let's start this journey towards the end. Speaking of finishing things, I guess, your link is pinned at the top of chat with a note that we are starting from chapter 10. I'm comfy. I hope you're comfy and cozy. And let's carry on towards the end of 3 Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. Chapter 10. Baden-Baden from the visitor's point of view. Beauty of the early morning as viewed from the preceding afternoon. Distance as measured by the compass. Ditto as measured by the leg. George in account with his conscience. A lazy machine. Bicycling according to the poster, its restfulness. The poster cyclist, its costume, its method. The griffin as a household pet. A dog with proper self-respect. The horse that was abused. From Baden, about which it need only be said that it is a pleasure resort singularly like other pleasure resorts of the same description, we started bicycling in earnest. We planned a 10 days tour, which, while completing the Black Forest, should include a spin down the Donautal, which, for the 20 miles from Tuttlingen to Sigmaringen, is perhaps the finest valley in Germany. The Danube stream here winding its narrow way past old-world, unspoilt villages, past ancient monasteries, nestling in green pastures, where still the bare-footed and bare-headed friar, his rope girdle tight about his loins, shepherds with crook in hand, his sheep upon the hillsides. Through rocky woods, between sheer walls of cliff, whose every towering crag stands crowned with ruined fortress, church, or castle, together with a blick at the Vosges mountains, where half the population is bitterly pained if you speak to them in French, the other half being insulted when you address them in German, and the whole indignantly contemptuous at the first sound of English, a state of things that renders conversation with the stranger somewhat nervous work. We did not succeed in carrying out our programme in its entirety, for the reason that human performance lags ever behind human intention. It is easy to say and believe at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that we will rise at 5, breakfast lightly at past, and start away at 6. Then we shall be well on our way before the heat of the day sets in, remarks one. This time of year the early morning is really the best part of the day, don't you think so? Adds another. Oh, undoubtedly. So cool and fresh, and the half-lights are so exquisite. The first morning one maintains one's vows. The party assembles at 5:30. It is very silent. Individually, somewhat snappy, inclined to grumble with its food, also with most other things. The atmosphere charged with compressed irritability seeking its vent. In the evening, the tempter's voice is heard. I think if we got off by 6:30 sharp, that would be time enough. The voice of virtue protests faintly. It will be breaking our resolution. The tempter replies, resolutions were made for man, not man for resolutions. The devil can paraphrase scripture for his own purpose. Besides, it is disturbing the whole hotel. Think of the poor servants. The voice of virtue continues, but even feebler. But everybody gets up early in these parts. They would not if they were not obliged to, poor things. Say, breakfast at 6:30, punctual. That will be disturbing nobody. Thus sin masquerades under the guise of good, and one sleeps till 6, explaining to one's conscience, who, however, doesn't believe it, that one does this because of unselfish consideration for others. I have known such consideration extend until past 7 of the clock. Likewise, distance, measured with a pair of compasses, is not precisely the same as when measured by the leg. 10 miles an hour for 7 hours, 70 miles. A nice easy day's work. There are some stiff hills to climb. The other side to come down. Say 8 miles an hour, and call it 60 miles. Gott in Himmel, if we can average 8 miles an hour, we had better go in bath chairs. It does seem somewhat impossible to do less on paper. But at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the voice of duty rings less trumpet-toned. Well, I suppose we ought to be getting on. Oh, there's no hurry, don't fuss. Lovely view from here, isn't it? Very. Don't forget we are 20 miles from St. Blasien. How far? 25 miles, a little over, if anything. Do you mean to say we have only come 35 miles? That's all. Nonsense. I don't believe that map of yours. It's impossible, you know. We have been riding steadily ever since the first thing this morning. No, we haven't. We didn't get away till 8 to begin with. 8:15. Well, 8:15. And every half-dozen miles we have stopped. We've only stopped to look at the view. No good coming to see a country and then not seeing it. We have had to pull up some stiff hills. Besides, it has been an exceptionally hot day today. Well, don't forget St. Blasien is 25 miles off, that's all. Any more hills? Yes, 2, up and down. I thought you said it was downhill to St. Blasien. So it is, the last 10 miles. We're 25 miles from St. Blasien here. Isn't there anywhere between here and St. Blasien? What's that little place there on the lake? It isn't St. Blasien, or anywhere near it. There's a danger in beginning that sort of thing. There's a danger in overworking oneself. One should study moderation in all things. Pretty little place, that Titisee, according to the map. Looks as if there would be good air there. All right, I'm agreeable. It was you fellows who suggested our making for St. Blasien. Oh, I'm not so keen on St. Blasien. Poky little place down in a valley. This Titisee, I should say, was ever so much nicer. Quite near, isn't it? 5 miles? General chorus. We'll stop at Titisee. George made discovery of this difference between theory and practice on the very first day of our ride. I thought, said George, he was riding the single, Harris and I being little ahead on the tandem, that the idea was to train up the hills and ride down them. So it is, answered Harris, as a general rule, but the trains don't go up every hill in the Black Forest. Somehow I felt a suspicion that they wouldn't, growled George, and for a while silence reigned. Besides, remarked Harris, who had evidently been ruminating the subject, you would not wish to have nothing but downhill, surely. You would not be playing the game. One must take a little rough with one smooth. Again there returned silence, broken after a while by George this time. Don't you two fellows overexert yourselves merely on my account, said George. How do you mean? Asked Harris. I mean, answered George, that where a train does happen to be going up these hills, don't you put aside the idea of taking it for fear of outraging my finer feelings. Personally, I'm prepared to go up all these hills in a railway train, even if it's not playing the game. I'll square the thing with my conscience. I've been up at 7 every day for a week now, and I calculate it owes me a bit. Don't you consider me in the matter at all? We promised to bear this in mind, and again the ride continued in dogged dumbness, until it was again broken by George. What bicycle did you say this was of yours? Asked George. Harris told him. I forget of what particular manufacture it happened to be. It is immaterial. You sure? Persisted George. Of course I'm sure, answered Harris. Why? What's the matter with it? Well, it doesn't come up to the poster, said George. That's all. What poster? Asked Harris. Poster advertising this particular brand of cycle, explained George. I was looking at one on a hoarding in Sloane Street only a day or two before we started. A man was riding this make of machine, a man with a banner in his hand. He wasn't doing any work, that was clear as daylight. He was just sitting on the thing and drinking in the air. The cycle was going of its own accord and going well. This thing of yours leaves all the work to me. It's a lazy brute of a machine. If you don't shove it, it simply does nothing. I should complain about it if I were you. When one comes to think of it, few bicycles do realise the poster. On only one poster that I can recollect have I seen the rider represented as doing any work. But then this man was being pursued by a bull. In ordinary cases, the object of the artist is to convince the hesitating neophyte that the sport of bicycling consists in sitting on a luxurious saddle and being moved rapidly in the direction you wish to go by unseen heavenly powers. Generally speaking, the rider is a lady, and then one feels that, for perfect bodily rest combined with the entire freedom from mental anxiety, slumber upon a waterbed cannot compare with bicycle riding upon a hilly road. No fairy travelling on a summer cloud could take things more easily than does the bicycle girl, according to the poster. Her costume for cycling in hot weather is ideal. Old-fashioned landladies might refuse her lunch, it is true, and a narrow-minded police force might desire to secure her and wrap her in a rug preliminary to summoning her. But such she heeds not. Uphill and downhill, through traffic that might tax the ingenuity of a cat, over road surfaces calculated to break the average steamroller, she passes, a vision of idle loveliness. Her fair hair streaming to the wind, her sylph-like form poised airily, one foot upon the saddle, the other resting lightly upon the lamp. Sometimes she condescends to sit down on the saddle. Then she puts her feet on the rests, lights a cigarette, and waves above her head a Chinese lantern. Less often, it is a mere male thing that rides the machine. He is not so accomplished an acrobat as is the lady, but simple tricks such as standing on the saddle and waving flags, drinking beer or beef tea while riding, he can and does perform. Something, one supposes, he must do to occupy his mind, sitting still hour after hour on this machine, having no work to do, nothing to think about, must pall upon any man of active temperament. Thus it is that we see him riding on his pedals as he nears the top of some high hill to apostrophize the sun or address poetry to the surrounding scenery. Occasionally, the poster pictures a pair of cyclists, and then one grasps the fact how much superior for purposes of flirtation is the modern bicycle to the old-fashioned parlour or the played-out garden gate. He and she mount their bicycles, being careful, of course, that they are of the right make. After that they have nothing to think about but the old sweet tale. Down shady lanes, through busy towns on market days, merrily roll the wheels of the Bermondsey Company's bottom bracket Britain's Best, or the Camberwell Company's jointless Eureka. They need no pedalling. They require no guiding. Give them their heads, and tell them what time you want to get home, and that is all they ask. While Edwin leans from his saddle to whisper the dear old nothings in Angelina's ear, while Angelina's face, to hide its blushes, is turned towards the horizon at the back, the magic bicycles pursue their even course. And the sun is always shining, and the roads are always dry. No stern parent rides behind, no interfering aunt beside, no demon small boy brother is peeping round the corner, and there never comes a skid. Ah me, why were there no Britain's Best, nor Camberwell Eurekas to be hired when we were young? Or, maybe, the Britain's Best, or the Camberwell Eureka stands leaning against a gate. Maybe it is tired. It has worked hard all the afternoon, carrying these young people. Mercifully minded, they have dismounted to give the machine a rest. They sit upon the grass beneath the shade of graceful boughs. It is long and dry grass. A stream flows by their feet. All is rest and peace. That is ever the idea the cycle poster artist sets himself to convey. Rest and peace. But I am wrong in saying that no cyclist, according to the poster, ever works. Now I come to reflect, I have seen posters representing gentlemen on cycles working very hard, overworking themselves, one might almost say. They are thin and haggard with the toil, The perspiration stands upon their brow in beads. You feel that if there is another hill beyond the poster, they must either get off or die. But this is the result of their own folly. This happens because they will persist in riding a machine of an inferior make. Were they riding a Putney Popular or Battersea Bounder, such as the sensible young man in the centre of the poster rides, then all this unnecessary labour would be saved to them. Then all required of them would be, as in gratitude bound, to look happy. Perhaps occasionally to backpedal a little when the machine in its youthful buoyancy loses its head for a moment and dashes on too swiftly. You tired young men, sitting dejectedly on milestones, too spent to heed the steady rain that soaks you through. You weary maidens, with the straight, damp hair, anxious about the time, longing to swear, not knowing how. You stout bald men, vanishing visibly as you pant and grunt along the endless road. You purple dejected matrons, plying with pain the slow unwilling wheel. Why did you not see to it that you bought a Britain's Best or a Camberwell Eureka? Why are these bicycles of inferior make so prevalent throughout the land? Or is it with bicycling, as with all other things, does life at no point realize the poster? The one thing in Germany that never fails to charm and fascinate me is the German dog. In England one grows so tired of the old breeds, one knows them all so well. The mastiff, the plum-pudding dog, the terrier, black, white, or rough-haired, as the case may be, but always quarrelsome. The collie, the bulldog, never anything new. Now, in Germany you get variety. You come across dogs the like of which you have never seen before, that until you hear them bark you do not know are dogs. It is all so fresh, so interesting. George stopped a dog in Sigmaringen and drew our attention to it. It suggested a cross between a codfish and a poodle. Harris tried to photograph it, but it ran up a fence and disappeared through some bushes. I do not know what the German breeder's idea is. At present he retains his secret. George suggests he is aiming at a griffin. There is much to bear out this theory, and, indeed, in one or two cases I have come across success on these lines would seem to have been almost achieved. Yet I cannot bring myself to believe that such are anything more than mere accidents. The German is practical, and I fail to see the object of a griffin. If mere quaintness of design be desired, is there not already the dachshund? What more is needed? Besides, about a house a griffin would be so inconvenient. People would be continuously treading on its tail. My own idea is that what the Germans are trying for is a mermaid, which they will then train to catch fish. For your German does not encourage laziness in any living thing. He likes to see his dogs work, and the German dog loves work. Of that there can be no doubt. The life of the English dog must be a misery to him. Imagine a strong, active and intelligent being of exceptionally energetic temperament condemned to spend 24 hours a day in absolute idleness. How would you like it yourself? No wonder he feels misunderstood, yearns for the unattainable, and gets himself into trouble generally. Now, the German dog, on the other hand, has plenty to occupy his mind. He is busy and important. Watch him as he walks along, harnessed to his milk cart. No churchwarden at collection time could feel or look more pleased with himself. He does not do any real work. The human being does the pushing. He does the barking. That is his idea of division of labour. What he says to himself is, "The old man can't bark, but he can shove. Very well." The interest and the pride he takes in the business is quite beautiful to see. Another dog passing by makes, maybe, some jeering remark, casting discredit upon the creaminess of the milk. He stops, suddenly, quite regardless of the traffic. I beg your pardon? What was that you said about our milk? I said nothing about your milk, retorts the other dog in a tone of gentle innocence. I merely said it was a fine day, and asked the price of chalk. Oh, you asked the price of chalk, did you? Would you like to know? Yes, thanks. Somehow I thought you would be able to tell me. You are quite right, I can. It's worth... Oh, do come along, says the old lady, who is tired and hot and anxious to finish her round. Yes, but hang it all, did you hear what he hinted about our milk? Oh, never mind him. There's a tram coming round the corner. We shall all get run over. Yes, but I do mind him. One has one's proper pride. He asked the price of chalk, and he's going to know it. It's worth just 20 times as much. You'll have the whole thing over, I know you will, cries the old lady pathetically, struggling with all her feeble strength to haul him back. Oh dear, I do wish I had left you at home. The tram is bearing down upon them. A cab driver is shouting at them. Another huge brute, hoping to be in time to take a hand, is dragging a bread cart, followed by a screaming child, across the road from the opposite side. A small crowd is collecting, and a policeman is hastening to the scene. It's worth, says the milk dog, just 20 times as much as you'll be worth before I've done with you. Oh, you think so, do you? Yes, I do, you grandson of a French poodle, you cabbage-eating... There, I knew you'd have it over, says the poor milkwoman. I told him he'd have it over. But he is busy, and heeds her not. 5 minutes later, when the traffic is renewed, when the bread girl has collected her muddy rolls, and the policeman has gone off with the name and address of everybody in the street, he consents to look behind him. It is a bit of an upset, he admits. Then, shaking himself free of care, he adds cheerfully, But I guess I taught them the price of chalk. He won't interfere with us again, I'm thinking. I'm sure I hope not, says the old lady, regarding dejectedly the milky road. But his favourite sport is to wait at the top of the hill for another dog, and then race down. On these occasions, the chief occupation of the other fellow is to run about behind, picking up the scattered articles, loaves, cabbages, or shirts as they are jerked out. At the bottom of the hill he stops and waits for his friend. Good race, wasn't it? He remarks, panting, as the human comes up, laden to the chin. I believe I'd have won it, too, if I hadn't been for that fool of a small boy. He was right in my way just as I turned the corner. You noticed him? I wish I had, the beastly brat. Oh, what's he yelling like that for? Because I knocked him down and ran over him? Well, why didn't he get out of the way? It's disgraceful, the way people leave their children about for other people to tumble over. Hello, did all these things come out? You couldn't have packed them very carefully. You should see to a thing like that. You did not dream of my tearing down the hill 20 miles an hour. Surely you knew me better than that, better than to expect I'd let the old Schneider dog pass me without an effort. But there, you never think. You're so sure you've got them all? You believe so? I shouldn't believe, if I were you, I should run back up the hill again and make sure. You feel too tired? Oh, all right. And don't blame me if anything is missing, that's all. He is so self-willed. He is cocksure that the correct turning is the second on the right, and nothing will persuade him that it is the third. He is positive he can get across the road in time, and will not be convinced until he sees the cart smashed up. Then he is very apologetic, it is true, but of what use is that? As he is usually of the size and strength of a young bull, and his human companion is generally a weak-kneed old man or woman, or a small child, he has his way. The greatest punishment his proprietor can inflict upon him is to leave him at home and take the cart out alone. But your German is too kind-hearted to do this often. That he is harnessed to the cart for anybody's pleasure but his own, it is impossible to believe, and I am confident that the German peasant plans the tiny harness and fashions the little cart purely with the hope of gratifying his dog. In other countries, in Belgium, Holland, and France, I have seen these draft dogs ill-treated and overworked. But in Germany, never. Germans abuse animals shockingly, I have seen a German stand in front of his horse and call it every name he could lay his tongue to, but the horse did not mind it. I have seen a German, weary with abusing his horse, call to his wife to come out and assist him. When she came, he told her what the horse had done. The recital roused the woman's temper to almost equal heat with his own, and standing one each side of the poor beast, they both abused it. They abused his dead mother. They insulted its father. They made cutting remarks about its personal appearance, its intelligence, its moral sense, and its general ability as a horse. The animal bore the torrent with exemplary patience for a while. Then it did the best thing possible to do under the circumstances. Without losing its own temper, it moved quietly away. The lady returned to her washing, and the man followed it up the street, still abusing it. A kinder-hearted people than the Germans there is no need for. Cruelty to animal or child is a thing almost unknown in the land. The whip with them is a musical instrument. Its crack is heard from morning to night, but an Italian coachman that, in the streets of Dresden, I once saw use it, was very nearly lynched by the indignant crowd. Germany is the only country in Europe where the traveller can settle himself comfortably in his hired carriage, confident that his gentle, willing friend between the shafts will be neither overworked nor cruelly treated. Chapter 11. Black Forest House, and the sociability therein. Its perfume. George positively declines to remain in bed after 4 o'clock in the morning. The road one cannot miss. My peculiar extra instinct. An ungrateful party. Harris as a scientist. His cheery confidence. The village, where it was, and where it ought to have been. George, his plan. We promenade à la Française. The German coachman asleep and awake. The man who spreads the English language abroad. There was one night when, tired out and far from town or village, we slept in a Black Forest farmhouse. The great charm about the Black Forest house is its sociability. The cows are in the next room, the horses are upstairs, the geese and ducks are in the kitchen, while the pigs, the children and the chickens all live all over the place. You are dressing when you hear a grunt behind you. "Good morning. Don't happen to have any potato peelings in here?" "No, I see you haven't. Goodbye." Next there is a cackle, and you see the neck of an old hen stretched round the corner. "Fine morning, isn't it? You don't mind my bringing this worm of mine in here, do you? It's so difficult in this house to find a room where one can enjoy one's food with any quietness. From a chicken I've always been a slow eater, and when a dozen— There, I thought they wouldn't leave me alone. Now they'll all want a bit. You don't mind my getting on the bed, do you? Perhaps here they won't notice me." While you are dressing, various shock heads peer in at the door. They evidently regard the room as a temporary menagerie. You cannot tell whether the heads belong to boys or girls. You can only hope they are all male. It is of no use shutting the door because there is nothing to fasten it by, and the moment you are gone they push it open again. You breakfast as the prodigal son is generally represented feeding. A pig or two drop in to keep you company. A party of elderly geese criticize you from the door. You gather from their whispers, added to their shocked expression, that they are talking scandal about you. Maybe a cow will condescend to give a glance in. This Noah's Ark arrangement it is, I suppose, that gives to the Black Forest home its distinctive scent. It is not a scent you can liken to any one thing. It is as if you took roses and Limburger cheese and hair oil, some heather and onions, peaches and soapsuds together with a dash of sea air and a corpse, and mixed them up together. You cannot define any particular odour, but you feel they are all there, all the odours that the world has yet discovered. People who live in these houses are fond of this mixture. They do not open the window and lose any of it. They keep it carefully bottled up. If you want any other scent, you can go outside and smell the wood violets in the pines. Inside, there is the house, and after a while, I am told, you get used to it, so that you miss it, and are unable to go to sleep in any other atmosphere. We had a long walk before us the next day, and it was our desire, therefore, to get up early, even so early as 6 o'clock, if that could be managed without disturbing the whole household. We put it to our hostess whether she thought this could be done. She said she thought it could. She might not be about herself at that time. It was her morning for going into the town, some 8 miles off, and she rarely got back much before 7. But possibly her husband or one of the boys would be returning home to lunch about that hour. Anyhow, somebody should be sent back to wake us up and get our breakfast. As it turned out, we did not need any waking. We got up at 4 all by ourselves. We got up at 4 in order to get away from the noise and the din that was making our heads ache. What time the Black Forest peasant rises in the summer-time I am unable to say, as to us they appeared to be getting up all night, and the first thing the Black Forester does when he gets up is to put on a pair of stout boots with wooden soles and take a constitutional round the house. Until he has been 3 times up and down the stairs, he does not feel he is up. Once fully awake himself, the next thing he does is to go upstairs to the stables and wake up a horse. The Black Forest house being built generally on the side of a steep hill, the ground floor is at the top and the hayloft at the bottom. Then the horse, it would seem, must also have its constitutional round the house. And this seen to, the man goes downstairs into the kitchen and begins to chop wood, and when he has chopped sufficient wood he feels pleased with himself and begins to sing. All things considered, we came to the conclusion we could not do better than follow the excellent example set to us. Even George was quite eager to get up that morning. We had a frugal breakfast at 4:30 and started away at 5. Our road lay over a mountain, and from inquiries made in the village it appeared to be one of those roads you cannot possibly miss. I suppose everybody knows this sort of road. Generally, it leads you back to where you started from, and when it doesn't, you wish it did, so that at all events you might know where you were. I foresaw evil from the very first, and before we had accomplished a couple of miles we came up with it. The road divided into 3. A worm-eaten signpost indicated that the path to the left led to a place that we had never heard of, that was on no map. Its other arm, pointing out the direction of the middle road, had disappeared. The road to the right, so we all agreed, clearly led back to the village. The old man said distinctly, so Harris reminded us, "Keep straight on round the hill." "Which hill?" George asked pertinently. We were confronted by 6, some of them big, some of them little. "He told us," continued Harris, "that we should come to a wood." "I see no reason to doubt him," commented George, "whichever road we take." As a matter of fact, a dense wood covered every hill. "And he said," murmured Harris, "we should reach the top in about an hour and a half." "There it is," said George, "that I begin to disbelieve him." "Well, what should we do?" said Harris. Now, I happen to possess the bump of locality. It is not a virtue, I make no boast of it. It is merely an animal instinct that I cannot help. That things occasionally get in my way, mountains, precipices, rivers, and such like obstructions, is no fault of mine. My instinct is correct enough. It is the earth that is wrong. I led them by the middle road. That the middle road had not character enough to continue for any quarter of a mile in the same direction, that after 3 miles up and down hill it ended abruptly in a wasp's nest, was not a thing that should have been laid to my door, If the middle road had gone in the direction it ought to have done, it would have taken us to where we wanted to go. Of that I am convinced. Even as it was, I would have continued to use this gift of mine to discover a fresh way, had a proper spirit been displayed towards me. But I am not an angel, I admit this frankly, and I decline to exert myself for the ungrateful and the ribald. Besides, I doubt if George and Harris would have followed me farther in any event. Therefore it was that I washed my hands of the whole affair, and that Harris entered upon the vacancy. "Well," said Harris, "I suppose you are satisfied with what you have done?" "I am quite satisfied," I replied from the heap of stones where I was sitting. "So far I have brought you with safety. I would continue to lead you farther, but no artist can work without encouragement. You appear dissatisfied with me because you do not know where you are. For all you know, you may be just where you want to be. But I say nothing as to that. I expect no thanks. Go your own way. I have done with you both." I spoke, perhaps, with bitterness, but I could not help it. Not a word of kindness had I had all the weary way. "Do not misunderstand us," said Harris. "Both George and myself feel that without your assistance we should never be where we now are. For that we give you every credit, but instinct is liable to error. What I propose to do is to substitute for it science, which is exact. Now, where's the sun?" "Don't you think," said George, "that if we made our way back to the village and hired a boy for a mark to guide us, it would save time in the end?" "It would be wasting hours," said Harris, with decision. "You leave this to me. I have been reading about this thing, and it has interested me." He took out his watch and began turning himself round and round. "It's as simple as ABC," he continued. "You point the shorthand at the sun, then you bisect the segment between the shorthand and the 12, and thus you get the north." He worried up and down for a while. Then he fixed it. "Now I've got it," he said. "That's the north, where the wasp's nest is. Now give me the map." We handed it to him, and, seating himself facing the wasps, he examined it. "Todmose from here," he said, "is south by southwest." "How do you mean, from here?" asked George. "Why, from here, where we are," returned Harris. "But where are we?" said George. This worried Harris for a time, but at length he cheered up. "Doesn't matter where we are," he said. "Wherever we are, Todmose is south by southwest. Come on, we're only wasting time." "I don't quite see how you make it out," said George as he rose and shouldered his knapsack. "But I suppose it doesn't matter. We are out for our health, and it's all pretty." "We should be all right," said Harris with cheery confidence. "We should be in Todmose before 10, don't you worry. And at Todmose we'll have something to eat." He said that he himself fancied a beefsteak, followed by an omelette. George said that personally he intended to keep his mind off the subject until he saw Todmose. We walked for half an hour. Then, emerging upon an opening, we saw below us, about 2 miles away, the village through which we had passed that morning. It had a quaint church with an outside staircase, a somewhat unusual arrangement. The sight of it made me sad. We had been walking hard for 3 hours and a half, and had accomplished, apparently, about 4 miles. But Harris was delighted. "Now, at last," said Harris, "we know where we are." "I thought you said it didn't matter," George reminded him. "No more it does, practically," replied Harris, "but it's just as well to be certain. Now I feel more confidence in myself." "I'm not so sure about that being an advantage," muttered George, but I do not think Harris heard him. "We are now," continued Harris, "east of the sun, and Todmose is southwest of where we are, so that if—" He broke off. "By the by," he said, "do you remember whether I said the bisecting line of that segment pointed to the north or the south?" "You said it pointed to the north," replied George. Are you positive? Persisted Harris. Positive, answered George, but don't let that influence your calculations. In all probability, you were wrong. Harris thought for a while, and then his brow cleared. That's all right, he said. Of course it's the north. It must be the north. How could it be the south? Now we must make for the west. Come on. I am quite willing to make for the west, said George. Any point of the compass is the same to me. I only wish to remark that, at the present moment, we are going dead east. No, we are not, returned Harris. We are going west. We are going east, I tell you, said George. I wish you wouldn't keep saying that, said Harris. You confuse me. I don't mind if I do, returned George. I would rather do that and go wrong. I tell you, we are going dead east. What nonsense, retorted Harris. There's the sun. I can see the sun, answered George, quite distinctly. It may be where it ought to be, according to you and science, or it may not. All I know is that when we were down in the village, that particular hill with that particular lump of rock upon it was due north of us. At the present moment, we are facing east. You are quite right, said Harris. I forgot, for the moment, that we had turned around. I should get into the habit of making a note of it if I were you, grumbled George. It's a manoeuvre that will probably occur again more than once. We faced about and walked in the other direction. At the end of 40 minutes climbing, we again emerged upon the opening, and again the village lay just under our feet. On this occasion, it was south of us. This is very extraordinary, said Harris. I see nothing remarkable about it, said George. If you walk steadily round a village, it is only natural that now and then you get a glimpse of it. Myself, I am glad to see it. Proves to me that we are not utterly lost. It ought to be the other side of us, said Harris. It will be in another hour or two, said George, if we keep on. I said little myself. I was vexed with both of them, but I was glad to notice George evidently growing cross with Harris. It was absurd of Harris to fancy he could find the way by the sun. I wish I knew, said Harris, thoughtfully, for certain whether that bisecting line points to the north or to the south. I should make up my mind about it, said George. It's an important point. It's impossible it can't be the north, said Harris, and I'll tell you why. You needn't trouble, said George. I'm quite prepared to believe it isn't. You said just now it was, said Harris, reproachfully. I said nothing of the sort, retorted George. I said you said it was. A very different thing. If you think it isn't, let's go the other way. There'll be a change at all events. So Harris worked things out according to the contrary calculation, and again we plunged into the wood. And again, after half an hour's stiff climbing, we came in view of that same village. True, we were a little higher, and this time it lay between us and the sun. I think, said George, as he stood looking down at it, this is the best view we've had of it as yet. There is only one other point from which we can see it. After that, I propose we go down into it and get some rest. I don't believe it's the same village, said Harris. It can't be. There's no mistake in that church, said George, but maybe it's a case on all fours. But maybe it is a case on all fours with that Prague statue. Possibly the authorities hereabout have made some life-size models of that village and have them stuck about the forest to see where the thing would look best. Anyhow, which way do we go now? I don't know, said Harris, and I don't care. I've done my best. You've done nothing but grumble and confuse me. I may have been critical, admitted George, but look at the thing from my point of view. One of you says he's got an instinct and leads me to a wasp's nest in the middle of the wood. I can't help wasps building in the wood, I replied. I don't say you can, answered George. I'm not arguing. I'm merely stating incontrovertible facts. The other one, who leads me up and down hill for hours on scientific principles, doesn't know the north from the south, and is never quite sure whether he's turned round or whether he hasn't. Personally, I profess to no instincts beyond the ordinary, nor am I a scientist. But 2 fields off I can see a man. I'm going to offer him the worth of the hay he is cutting, which I estimate at 1 mark 50 pfennig, to leave his work and lead me to within sight of Toltmose. If you 2 fellows like to follow, you can. If not, you can start another system and work it out by yourselves. George's plan lacks both originality and aplomb, but at the moment it appealed to us. Fortunately, we had worked round to a very short distance from the spot where we had originally gone wrong, with the result that, aided by the gentleman of the scythe, we recovered the road and reached Todmose 4 hours later than we had calculated to reach it, with an appetite that took 45 minutes steady work in silence to abate. From Todmose we had intended to walk down to the Rhine, but having regard to our extra exertions of the morning, we decided to promenade in a carriage, as the French would say, and for this purpose hired a picturesque-looking vehicle drawn by a horse that I should have called barrel-bodied, but for contrast with his driver, in comparison with whom he was angular. In Germany, every vehicle is arranged for a pair of horses, but generally drawn by one. This gives to the equipage a lopsided appearance, according to our notions, but it is held here to indicate style. The idea to be conveyed is that you usually drive a pair of horses, but that, for the moment, you have mislaid the other one. The German driver is not what we should call a first-class whip. He is at his best when he is asleep. Then, at all events, he is harmless, and the horse, being, generally speaking, intelligent and experienced, progress under these conditions is comparatively safe. If, in Germany, they could only train the horse to collect the money at the end of the journey, there would be no need for a coachman at all. This would be a distinct relief to the passenger, for when the German coachman is awake and not cracking his whip, he is generally occupied in getting himself into trouble or out of it. He is better at the former. Once I recollect driving down a steep black forest hill with a couple of ladies. It was one of those roads winding corkscrew-wise down the slope. The hill rose at an angle of 75 on the off-side, and fell away at an angle of 75 on the near side. We were proceeding very comfortably, the driver, we were happy to notice, with his eyes shut, when suddenly something, a bad dream or indigestion, awoke him. He seized the reins and, by an adroit movement, pulled the near-side horse over the edge, where it clung, half-supported by the traces. Our driver did not appear in the least annoyed or surprised. Both horses, I also noticed, seemed equally used to the situation. We got out, and he got down. He took from under the seat a huge clasp knife, evidently kept there for the purpose, and deftly cut the traces. The horse, thus released, rolled over and over until he struck the road again, some 50 feet below. There he regained his feet and stood waiting for us. We re-entered the carriage and descended with the single horse until we came to him. There, with the help of some bits of string, our driver harnessed him again, and we continued on our way. What impressed me was the evident accustomedness of both driver and horses to this method of working down a hill. Evidently to them it appeared a short and convenient cut. I should not have been surprised had the man suggested our strapping ourselves in, and then rolling over and over, carriage and all, to the bottom. Another peculiarity of the German coachman is that he never attempts to pull in or to pull up. He regulates his rate of speed, not by the pace of the horse, but by manipulation of the brake. For 8 miles an hour he puts it on slightly, so that it only scrapes the wheel, producing a continuous sound as of the sharpening of a saw. For 4 miles an hour he screws it down harder, and you travel to an accompaniment of groans and shrieks, suggestive of a symphony of dying pigs. When he desires to come to a full stop, he puts it on to its full. If his brake is a good one, he calculates he can stop his carriage, unless the horse be an extra powerful animal, in less than twice its own length. Neither the German driver nor the German horse knows, apparently, that you can stop a carriage by any other method. The German horse continues to pull with his full strength until he finds it impossible to move the vehicle another inch. Then he rests. Horses of other countries are quite willing to stop when the idea is suggested to them. I have known horses content to go even quite slowly. But your German horse, seemingly, is built for one particular speed, and is unable to depart from it. I am stating nothing but the literal, unadorned truth when I say I have seen a German coachman, with the reins lying loose over the splashboard, working his brake with both hands, in terror lest he would not be in time to avoid a collision. At Woldschund, one of those little 16th-century towns through which the Rhine flows during its earlier course, we came across that exceedingly common object of the continent, the travelling Briton, grieved and surprised with the unacquaintance of the foreigner with the subtleties of the English language. When we entered the station, he was, in very fair English, though with a slight Somersetshire accent, explaining to a porter for the 10th time, as he informed us, the simple fact that though he himself had a ticket for Donaueschingen, he wanted to go to Donaueschingen to see the source of the Danube, which is not there, though they tell you it is. He wished his bicycle to be sent on to Engen, and his bag to Constance, there to await his arrival. He was hot and angry with the effort of the thing. The porter was a young man in years, but at the moment looked old and miserable. I offered my services. I wish now I had not, though not so fervently, I expect, as he, the speechless one, came subsequently to wish this. All 3 routes, so the porter explained to us, were complicated, necessitating changing and rechanging. There was not much time for calm elucidation, as our own train was starting in a few minutes. The man himself was voluble, always a mistake when anything entangled has to be made clear, while the porter was only too eager to get the job done with, and so breathe again. It dawned upon me, 10 minutes later, when thinking the matter over in the train, that though I had agreed with the porter that it would be best for the bicycle to go by way of Immendingen, and had agreed to his booking it to Immendingen, I had neglected to give instructions for its departure from Immendingen. Were I of a despondent temperament, I should be worrying myself at the present moment with the reflection that, in all probability, that bicycle is still at Immendingen to this day. But I regard it as good philosophy to endeavour always to see the brighter side of things. Possibly the porter corrected my omission on his own account, or some simple miracle may have happened to restore that bicycle to its owner some time before the end of his tour. The bag we sent to Radolfzell, but here I console myself with the recollection that it was labelled Constance, and no doubt after a while the railway authorities, finding it unclaimed at Radolfzell, forwarded it on to Constance. But all this is apart from the moral I wished to draw from the incident. The true inwardness of the situation lay in the indignation of this Britisher at finding a German railway porter unable to comprehend English. The moment we spoke to him he expressed this indignation in no measured terms. "Thank you very much indeed," he said. "It's simple enough. I want to go to Donaueschingen myself by train. From Donaueschingen I'm going to walk to Gessingen, and from Gessingen I'm going to take the train to Engen, and from Engen I'm going to bicycle to Constance. But I don't want to take my bag with me. I want to find it at Constance when I get there. I've been trying to explain the thing to this fool for the last 10 minutes, but I can't get it into him." "It is very disgraceful," I agreed. "Some of these German workmen hardly know any other language than their own." "I have gone over it with him," continued the man, "on the timetable, and explained it by pantomime. Even then I could not knock it into him." "I can hardly believe you," I again remarked. "You would think the thing explained itself." Harris was angry with the man. He wished to reprove him for his folly in journeying through the outlying portions of a foreign clime, and seeing in such to accomplish complicated railway tricks without knowing a word of the language of the country. But I checked the impulsiveness of Harris, and pointed out to him the great and good work at which the man was unconsciously assisting. Shakespeare and Milton may have done their little best to spread acquaintance with the English tongue among the less favoured inhabitants of Europe. Newton and Darwin may have rendered their language a necessity among educated and thoughtful foreigners. Dickens and Ouida, for your folk who imagine that the literary world is bounded by the prejudices of New Grub Street, would be surprised and grieved at the position occupied abroad by this at-home sneered-at lady, may have helped still further to popularize it. But the man who has spread the knowledge of the English from Cape St. Vincent to the Ural Mountains is the Englishman who, unable or willing to learn a single word of any language but his own, travels purse in hand into every corner of the continent. One may be shocked at his ignorance, annoyed at his stupidity, angry at his presumption, but the practical fact remains: he it is that is Anglicizing Europe. For him the Swiss peasant tramps through the snow on winter evenings to attend the English class open in every village. For him the coachman and the guard, the chambermaid and the laundress pore over their English grammars and colloquial phrase-books. For him the foreign shopkeeper and merchant send their sons and daughters in the thousands to study in every English town. For him it is that every foreign hotel and restaurant keeper adds to his advertisements, "Only those with fair knowledge of English need apply." Did the English-speaking races make it their rule to speak anything else than English, the marvellous progress of the English tongue throughout the world would stop. The English-speaking man stands amid the strangers and jingles his gold. "Here," he cries, "is payment for all such as can speak English." He it is who is the great educator. Theoretically we may scold him. Practically we should take our hats off to him. He is the missionary of the English tongue. Yeah. And on that note, we shall take a break, because that is the end of the chapter. Well, I felt like I got through that. I felt like I got through that at a fair pace. But also, that's like just a good, solid hour of straight reading. So, yeah, I need a break. Yeah, okay, let's take a break. Oh, see you back here in 5 minutes. Jerome has some interesting ideas of things. I think that is satirical. I think that is. I'm assuming we're all up on that. Like, he is taking the piss out of the ignorant Englishman who goes abroad and just by like sheer force of will expects the world to have adopted the language and to understand him. We kind of have a reputation for that. The whole Susie Eddie Izzard bit from years ago about sausage, egg and chips, please. Going to other countries and just like shouting louder and louder until, you know, and sort of getting indignant about places that aren't England not speaking English without any sense of self-awareness or irony. It's, if anything, it's just kind of interesting and funny to me to see that joke, that sort of self-aware, self-effacing humour, going back like, you know, round about 100 years. It's nice to see someone then taking the piss out of it too, rather than, yeah, actually. But anyway, yes, it is break time. So, go take a break. Cycle your fluids, stretch your limbs, and I'll see you back here in about 5 minutes or so. Bye for now. hello. I realise I'm anticipating Joey coming in and jumping up on me, and so I put a blanket on me for that purpose. But I'm gonna have to get up to let him in anyway, so pointless blanket. It's only September, and it's even temperature saying it's still like 18 degrees outside, so it's not even that cold. Sorry if it's moving the microphone as well. Hopefully not making noises coming through for you all. Yeah. How are you doing? A lot of noise outside this evening. Yeah, we still got a couple of chapters to go. On chapter 12, and the last one is chapter 14, so obviously, mathematically, we have 3 chapters to go. It still doesn't make sense to me that 12, 13, 14, that's 12 to 14 is 2, and yet it's 3 chapters. I hate maths. You have a blanket across your feet specifically for cat purposes? Yeah. Mine's... It's tactical, let's say, for a number of different reasons. It is an ablative blanket. It is there for, for reasons. But yeah. Should I repin? Because we're now going to be going from chapter 12. Maybe I'll repin at the top of chat. Let's just do that. So that you all know, or anyone coming in knows where we are. Joey's favourite blanket? I don't know that he has a favourite blanket, really. He just... I mean, it is actually the blanket that he is cuddling in the GIF. So there is that. How we pen. Remember how this. I can stream. I don't know why it now pops it out over the stream for me. That's very weird and feels like a bug. Anyway, yeah, that's now pinned at the top of chat, so that's cool. Yeah, still got a long way to go. What are we on? Page 310, and we're trying to get to... Oh, blimey. Page 347. So we've still got 37 pages. That's like a full stream's worth. So, but not enough for 2 streams. So, yeah, if we're ready, let's carry on. Like I say, it's going to be a long one, so we might as well press on with it. This is continuation, we're still on it. 3 Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. Chapter 12. We are grieved at the earthly instincts of the Germans. A superb view, but no restaurant. Continental opinion of the Englishman. That he does not know enough to come in out of the rain. There comes a weary traveller with a brick. The hunting of the dog. An undesirable family residence. A fruitful region. A merry old soul comes up the hill. George, alarmed at the lateness of the hour, hastens down the other side. Harris follows him to show him the way. I hate being alone and follow Harris. Pronunciation specially designed for use of foreigners. A thing that vexes much the high-class Anglo-Saxon soul is the earthly instinct prompting the German to fix a restaurant at the goal of every excursion. On mountain summit, in fairy glen, on lonely pass, by waterfall or winding stream, stands the ever-busy Wirtschaft. How can one rhapsodize over a view when surrounded by beer-stained tables? How lose one's self in historical reverie amid the odour of roast veal and spinach? One day, on elevating thoughts intent, we climbed through tangled woods. And at the top, said Harris bitterly, as we paused to breathe a space and pull our belts a hole tighter, there will be a gaudy restaurant where people will be guzzling beefsteaks and plum tarts and drinking white wine. Do you think so? Said George. Ought to be, answered Harris. You know their way. Not one grove will they consent to dedicate to solitude and contemplation. Not one height will they leave to the lover of nature unpolluted by the gross and material. I calculate, I remarked, that we shall be there a little before 1 o'clock, provided we don't dawdle. The Mittagstisch will be just ready, groaned Harris, with possibly some of those little blue trout they catch about here. In Germany, one never seems able to get away from food and drink. It's maddening. We pushed on, and in the beauty of the walk forgot our indignation. My estimate proved to be correct. At 1:15, said Harris, who was leading, "Here we are. I can see the summit." "Any sign of that restaurant?" said George. "I don't notice it," replied Harris, "but it's there, you may be sure. Confound it." 5 minutes later we stood upon the top. We looked north, south, east, and west. Then we looked at one another. "Grand view, isn't it?" said Harris. "Magnificent," I agreed. "Superb," remarked George. "Have a good sense for once," said Harris, "to put that restaurant out of sight." "They do seem to have hidden it," said George. "One doesn't mind the thing so much when it's not forced under one's nose," said Harris. "Of course, in its place," I observed, "a restaurant is right enough." "I should like to know where they have put it," said George. "Suppose we look for it," said Harris, with inspiration. But there's some fluff on the mic that I really don't want to inhale this time, as seems to be a steady stream ritual. "Suppose we look for it," said Harris, with inspiration. It seemed a good idea. I felt curious myself. We agreed to explore in different directions, returning to the summit to report progress. In half an hour we stood together once again. There was no need for words. The face of one and all of us announced plainly that at last we had discovered a recess of German nature untarnished by the sordid suggestion of food or drink. "I should never have believed it possible," said Harris. "Would you?" "I should say," I replied, "that this is the only square quarter of a mile in the entire fatherland unprovided with one." "And we three strangers have struck it," said George, "without an effort." "True," I observed. "By pure good fortune we are now enabled to feast our finer senses undisturbed by appeal to lower nature. Observe the light upon those distant peaks. Is it not ravishing?" "Talking of nature," said George, "which should you say was the nearest way down?" "The road to the left," I replied after consulting the guidebook, "takes us to Sonnensteig, where, by the by, I observe the Goldener Adler is well spoken of, in about 2 hours. The road to the right, though somewhat longer, commands more extensive prospects." "One prospect," said Harris, "is very much like another prospect, don't you think so?" "Personally," said George, "I'm going by the left-hand road." And Harris and I went after him. But we were not to get down so soon as we had anticipated. Storms come quickly in these regions, and before we had walked for a quarter of an hour it became a question of seeking shelter, or living for the rest of the day in soaked clothes. We decided on the former alternative, and selected a tree that, under ordinary circumstances, should have been ample protection. But a Black Forest thunderstorm is not an ordinary circumstance. We consoled ourselves at first by telling each other that at such a rate it could not last long. Next, we endeavoured to comfort ourselves with the reflection that, if it did, we should soon be too wet to fear getting wetter. "As it turned out," said Harris, "should have been almost glad if there had been a restaurant up here." "I see no advantage in being both wet and hungry," said George. "I shall give it another 5 minutes, and I'm going on." "These mountain solitudes," I remarked, "are very attractive in fine weather. On a rainy day, especially if you happen to be past the age when—" At this point there hailed us a voice proceeding from a stout gentleman who stood some 50 feet away from us under a big umbrella. "Won't you come inside?" asked the stout gentleman. "Inside where?" I called back. I thought at first he was one of those fools that will try to be funny when there is nothing to be funny about. "Inside the restaurant," he answered. We left our shelter and made for him. We wished for further information about this thing. "I did call you from the window," said the stout gentleman as we drew near to him, "but I suppose you did not hear me. This storm may last for another hour. You will get so wet." He was a kindly old gentleman. He seemed quite anxious about us. I said, "It is very nice of you to have come out. We are not lunatics. We have not been standing under that tree for the last half hour, knowing all the time there was a restaurant hidden by the trees within 20 yards of us. We had no idea we were anywhere near a restaurant." "I thought maybe you hadn't," said the old gentleman. "That is why I came." It appeared that all the people in the inn had been watching us from the windows, also wondering why we stood there looking miserable. If it had not been for this nice old gentleman, the fools would have remained watching us, I suppose, for the rest of the afternoon. The landlord excused himself by saying he thought we looked like English. It is no figure of speech. On the continent, they do sincerely believe that every Englishman is mad. They are as convinced of it as every English peasant that Frenchmen live on frogs, even when one makes a direct personal effort to disabuse them of the impression. One is not always successful. It was a comfortable little restaurant, where they cooked well, while the Tischwein was really most passable. We stopped there for a couple of hours, and dried ourselves, and fed ourselves, and talked about the view. And just before we left, an incident occurred that shows how much more stirring in this world are the influences of evil compared with those of good. A traveller entered. He seemed a careworn man. He carried a brick in his hand tied to a piece of rope. He entered nervously and hurriedly closed the door carefully behind him, saw to it that it was fastened, peered out of the window long and earnestly, and then, with a sigh of relief, laid his brick upon the bench beside him and called for food and drink. There was something mysterious about the whole affair. One wondered what he was going to do with the brick, why he had closed the door so carefully, why he had looked so anxiously from the window, but his aspect was too wretched to invite conversation, and we forbore, therefore, to ask him questions. As he ate and drank, he grew more cheerful, sighed less often. Later he stretched his legs, lit an evil-smelling cigar, and puffed in calm contentment. Then it happened. It happened too suddenly for any detailed explanation of the thing to be possible. I recollect a Fräulein entering the room from the kitchen with a pan in her hand. I saw her cross to the outer door. The next moment the whole room was in an uproar. One was reminded of those pantomime transformation scenes where, from among floating clouds, slow music, waving flowers, and reclining fairies, one is suddenly transported into the midst of shouting policemen tumbling over yelling babies, swells fighting pantaloons, sausages and harlequins, buttered slides and clowns. As the Fräulein of the pan touched the door, it flew open, as though all the spirits of sin had been pressed against it, waiting. 2 pigs and a chicken rushed into the room. A cat that had been sleeping on a beer barrel spluttered into fiery life. The Fräulein threw her pan through the air and lay down on the floor. The gentleman with the brick sprang to his feet, upsetting the table before him with everything upon it. One looked to see the cause of this disaster. One discovered it at once in the person of a mongrel terrier with pointed ears and a squirrel's tail. The landlord rushed out from another door and attempted to kick him out of the room. Instead, he kicked one of the pigs, the fatter of the two. It was a vigorous, well-planted kick, and the pig got the whole of it. None of it was wasted. One felt sorry for the poor animal, but no amount of sorrow anyone else might feel for him could compare with the sorrow he felt for himself. He stopped running about. He sat down in the middle of the room and appealed to the solar system generally to observe this unjust thing that had come upon him. They must have heard his complaint in the valleys round about, and have wondered what upheaval of nature was taking place among the hills. As for the hen, it scuttled, screaming every way at once. It was a marvellous bird. It seemed to be able to run up a straight wall quite easily. And it and the cat between them fetched down mostly everything that was not already on the floor. In less than 40 seconds there were 9 people in that room, all trying to kick one dog. Possibly, now and again, one or another may have succeeded, for occasionally the dog would stop barking in order to howl, but it did not discourage him. Everything has to be paid for, he evidently argued, even a pig and a chicken hunt. And, on the whole, the game was worth it. Besides, he had the satisfaction of observing that, for every kick he received, most living things in the room got 2. As for the unfortunate pig, the stationary one, the one that still sat lamenting in the centre of the room, he must have averaged a steady 4. Trying to kick this dog was like playing football with a ball that was never there. Not when you went to kick it, but after you had started to kick it and had gone too far to stop yourself, so that the kick had to go on in any case, your only hope being that your foot would find something or another solid to stop it, and so save you from sitting down on the floor noisily and completely. When anybody did kick the dog, it was by pure accident, when they were not expecting to kick him. And, generally speaking, this took them so unawares that, after kicking him, they fell over him, and everybody, every half-minute, would be certain to fall over the pig, the sitting pig, the one incapable of getting out of anybody's way. How long the scrimmage might have lasted, it is impossible to say. It was ended by the judgment of George. For a while he had been seeking to catch, not the dog, but the remaining pig, the one still capable of activity. Cornering it, at last, he persuaded it to cease running round the room, and instead take a spin outside. It shot through the door with one long wail. We always desire the thing we have not. 1 pig, a chicken, 9 people, and a cat were as nothing in that dog's opinion compared with the quarry that was disappearing. Unwisely, he darted after it, and George closed the door upon him and shot the bolt. Then the landlord stood up and surveyed all the things that were lying on the floor. "That's a playful dog of yours," he said to the man who had come in with the brick. "He is not my dog," replied the man sullenly. "Whose dog is it, then?" said the landlord. "I don't know whose dog it is," answered the man. "That won't do for me, you know," said the landlord, picking up a picture of the German Emperor and wiping beer from it with his sleeve. "I know it won't," replied the man. "I never expected it would. I'm tired of telling people it isn't my dog. They none of them believe me." "What do you want to go about with him for, if he's not your dog?" said the landlord. "What's the attraction about him?" "I don't go about with him," replied the man. "He goes about with me. He picked me up this morning at 10 o'clock, and he won't leave me. I thought I'd got rid of him when I came in here. I left him busy killing a duck more than a quarter of an hour away." "I'll have to pay for that, I expect, on my way back." "Have you tried throwing stones at him?" asked Harris. "I tried throwing stones at him," replied the man contemptuously. "I've been throwing stones at him till my arm aches with throwing stones, and he thinks it's a game and brings them back to me. I've been carrying this beastly brick about with me for over an hour in the hope of being able to drown him, but he never comes near enough for me to get hold of him. He just sits 6 inches out of reach with his mouth open and looks at me." "The funniest story I've heard for a long while," said the landlord. "Glad it amuses somebody," said the man. We left him helping the landlord to pick up the broken things, and went our way. A dozen yards outside the door, the faithful animal was waiting for his friend. He looked tired, but contented. He was evidently a dog of strange and sudden fancies, and we feared for the moment lest he might take a liking to us. But he let us pass with indifference. His loyalty to this unresponsive man was touching, and we made no attempt to undermine it. Having completed, to our satisfaction, the Black Forest, we journeyed on our wheels through the Alt Breisach and Colmar to Munster, where we started a short exploration of the Vosges range, where, according to the present German Emperor, humanity stops. Of old, Alt Breisach, a rocky fortress with the river now on one side of it and now on the other, for in its inexperienced youth the Rhine never seems to have been quite sure of its way, must, as a place of residence, have appealed exclusively to the lover of change and excitement. Whoever the war was between, and whatever it was about, Alt Breisach was bound to be in it. Everybody besieged it. Most people captured it. The majority of them lost it again. Nobody seemed able to keep it. Whom he belonged to, and what he was, the dweller in Alt Breisach could never have been quite sure. One day he would be a Frenchman, and then, before he could learn enough French to pay his taxes, he would be an Austrian. While trying to discover what you did in order to be a good Austrian, he would find he was no longer an Austrian, but a German, though what particular German out of a dozen must always have been doubtful to him. One day he would discover that he was a Catholic, the next an ardent Protestant. The only thing that could have given any stability to his existence must have been the monotonous necessity for paying heavily for the privilege of being whatever for the moment he was. But when one begins to think of these things, one finds oneself wondering why anybody in the Middle Ages, except kings and tax collectors, ever took the trouble to live at all. For variety and beauty, the Vosges will not compare with the hills of Schwarzwald. The advantage about them from the tourist's point of view is their superior poverty. The Vosges peasant has not the unromantic air of contented prosperity that spoils his vis-à-vis across the Rhine. The villages and farms possess more the charm of decay. Another point wherein the Vosges district excels in its ruins. Many of the numerous castles are perched where you might think only eagles would dare to build. In others, commenced by the Romans and finished by the troubadours, covering acres with the maze of their still-standing walls, one may wander for hours. The fruiterer and greengrocer is a person unknown in the Vosges. Most things of that kind grow wild and are to be had for the picking. It is difficult to keep to any programme when walking through the Vosges, the temptation on a hot day to stop and eat fruit generally being too strong for resistance. Raspberries, the most delicious I have ever tasted, wild strawberries, currants and gooseberries grow upon the hillsides as the blackberries by English lanes. The Vosges small boy is not called upon to rob an orchard. He can make himself ill without sin. Orchards exist in the Vosges mountains in plenty, but to trespass into one for the purpose of stealing fruit would be as foolish as for a fish to try and get into a swimming bath without paying. Still, of course, mistakes do occur. One afternoon, in the course of a climb, we emerged upon a plateau where we lingered perhaps too long, eating more fruit than may have been good for us. It was so plentiful around us, so varied. We commenced with a few late strawberries, and from those we passed to raspberries. Then Harris found a greengage tree with some early fruit upon it, just perfect. "This is about the best thing we have struck," said George. "We had better make the most of this," which was good advice on the face of it. "It is a pity," said Harris, "that the pears are still so hard." He grieved about this for a while, but later on I came across some remarkably fine yellow plums, and these consoled him somewhat. "I suppose we're still a bit too far north for pineapples," said George. "I feel I could just enjoy a fresh pineapple. It's commonplace fruit palls upon one after a while. Too much bush fruit and not enough tree is the fault, I find," said Harris. "Myself, I should have liked a few more greengages." "Here is a man coming up the hill," I observed, "who looks like a native. Maybe he will know where we can find some more green gauges." "He walks well for an old chap," remarked Harris. He certainly was climbing the hill at a remarkable pace. Also, so far as we were able to judge at that distance, he appeared to be in a remarkably cheerful mood, singing and shouting at the top of his voice, gesticulating and waving his arms. "What a merry old soul he is," said Harris. "It does one good to watch him." "Well, why does he carry his stick over his shoulder? Why doesn't he use it to help him up the hill?" "Do you know, I don't think that is a stick," said George. "What can it be then?" asked Harris. "Well, it looks to me," said George, "more like a gun." "You don't think we've made a mistake?" suggested Harris. "You don't think this can be anything in the nature of a private orchard?" I said, "Do you remember the sad thing that happened in the south of France some 2 years ago? A soldier picked some cherries as he passed a house, and the French peasant to whom the cherries belonged came out, and without a word of warning shot him dead." But surely you're not allowed to shoot a man dead for picking fruit, even in France," said George. "Of course not," I answered. "It was quite illegal. The only excuse offered by his counsel was that he was of a highly excitable disposition, and especially keen about these particular cherries." "I recollect something about the case," said Harris, "now you mention it. I believe the district in which it happened, the commune, as I think it is called, had to pay heavy compensation to the relatives of the deceased soldier, which was only fair." George said, "I'm tired of this place. Besides, it's getting late." Harris said, "If he goes at that rate, he will fall and hurt himself. Besides, I don't think he knows the way." I felt lonesome up there all by myself, with nobody to speak to. Besides, not since I was a boy, I reflected, had I enjoyed a run down a really steep hill. I thought I would see if I could revive the sensation. It is a jerky exercise, but good, I should say, for the liver. We slept that night at Bar, a pleasant little town on the way to St. Ottilienburg, an interesting old convent among the mountains where you are waited upon by real nuns, and your bill made out by a priest. At Bar, just before supper, a tourist entered. He looked English, but spoke a language the like of which I have never heard before, yet it was an elegant and fine-sounding language. The landlord stared at him blankly. The landlady shook her head. He sighed and tried another, which somehow recalled to me forgotten memories, though at the time I could not fix it. But again nobody understood him. "This is damnable," he said aloud to himself. "Ah, you are English," exclaimed the landlord, brightening up. "And monsieur looks tired," added the bright little landlady. "Monsieur will have supper." They both spoke English excellently, nearly as well as they spoke French and German, and they bustled about and made him comfortable. At supper he sat next to me, and I talked to him. "Tell me," I said. I was curious on the subject. "What language was it you spoke when you first came in?" "German," he explained. "Oh," I replied. "I beg your pardon." "You did not understand it?" he continued. "It must have been my fault," I answered. "My knowledge is extremely limited. One picks up a little here and there as one goes about, but of course that is a different thing." "But they didn't understand it," he replied. "The landlord and his wife. And it's their own language." "I do not think so," I said. "The children hereabout speak German, it is true, and our landlord and landlady know German to a certain point. But throughout Alsace and Lorraine, old people still talk French. I spoke to them in French also," he added, "and they understood that no better." "It is certainly very curious," I agreed. "It's more than curious," he replied. "In my case, it's incomprehensible. I possess a diploma for modern languages. I won my scholarship purely on the strength of my French and German. The correctness of my construction, the purity of my pronunciation was considered at my college to be quite remarkable. Yet, when I come abroad, hardly anybody understands a word I say. Can you explain it?" "I think I can," I replied. "Your pronunciation is too faultless." You remember what the Scotsman said when, for the first time in his life, he tasted real whiskey. It may be pure, but I cannae drink it. So it is with your German. It strikes one less as a language than as an exhibition. If I might offer advice, I should say, mispronounce as much as possible and throw in as many mistakes as you can think of. It is the same everywhere. Each country keeps a special pronunciation exclusively for the use of foreigners, a pronunciation they never dream of using themselves, that they cannot understand when it is used. I once heard an English lady explaining to a Frenchman how to pronounce the word have. You will pronounce it, said the lady reproachfully, as if it were spelled H-A-V. It isn't. There is an E at the end. But I thought, said the pupil, that you did not sound the E at the end of H-A-V-E. No more you do, explained his teacher. It is what we call a mute E, but it exercises a modifying influence on the preceding vowel. Before that, he used to say have quite intelligently. Afterwards, when he came to the word, he would stop dead, collect his thoughts, and give expression to a sound that only the context could explain. Putting aside the sufferings of the early martyrs, few men, I suppose, have gone through more than I myself went through in trying to attain the correct pronunciation of the German word for church. Kirche. Long before I had done with it, I had determined never to go to church in Germany rather than be bothered with it. No, no, my teacher would explain. He was a painstaking gentleman. You say it as if it were spelt Kirchke. There is no K. It is, and he would illustrate to me again for the 20th time that morning how it should be pronounced. The sad thing being that I could never for the life of me detect any difference between the way he said it and the way I said it. So he would try a new method. You say it from your throat, he would explain. He was quite right. I did. I want you to say it from down here. And with a fat forefinger he would indicate the region from where I was to start. After painful effort, resulting in sounds suggestive of anything rather than a place of worship, I would excuse myself. I really fear it is impossible, I would say. You see, for years I have always talked with my mouth, as it were. I never knew a man could talk with his stomach. I doubt if it is not too late now for me to learn. By spending hours in dark corners and practising in silent streets to the terror of chance passers-by, I came, at last, to pronounce this word correctly. My teacher was delighted with me, and until I came to Germany I was pleased with myself. In Germany I found that nobody understood what I meant by it. I never got near a church with it. I had to drop the correct pronunciation and painstakingly go back to my first wrong pronunciation. Then they would brighten up and tell me it was round the corner or down the next street, as the case may be. I also think that pronunciation of a foreign tongue could be better taught than by demanding from the pupil those internal acrobatic feats that are generally impossible and always useless. This is the sort of instruction one receives. Press your tonsils against the underside of your larynx, then with the convex part of the septum curved upwards so as almost but not quite to touch the uvula, try with the tip of your tongue to reach your thyroid. Take a deep breath and compress your glottis. Now, without opening your lips, say garoo. And when you have done it, they are not satisfied. Chapter 13, which, as a slight warning, does in a bit come with some descriptions, kind of gory descriptions of dueling sword fighting. Let's call it that. An examination into the character and behaviour of the German student. The German Mensur. Uses and abuses of use. Views of an impressionist. The humour of the thing. Recipe for making savages. The Jungfrau, a peculiar taste in faces. The Nape. How to rub a salamander. Advice to the Stranger. A story that might have ended sadly, of 2 men and 2 wives, together with a bachelor. On our way home, we included a German university town, being wishful to obtain an insight into the ways of student life, a curiosity that the courtesy of German friends enabled us to gratify. The English boy plays till he is 15, and works thence till 20. In Germany, it is the child that works, the young man that plays. The German boy goes to school at 7 o'clock in the summer, at 8 in the winter, and at school he studies. The result is that at 16 he has a thorough knowledge of the classics and mathematics, knows as much history as any man compelled to belong to a political party is wise in knowing, together with a thorough grounding in modern languages. Therefore his 8 college semesters, extending over 4 years, are, except for the young man aiming at a professorship, unnecessarily ample. He is not a sportsman, which is a pity, for he should make a good one. He plays football a little, bicycles still less. He plays French billiards and stuffy cafes more. But, generally speaking, he, or the majority of him, lays out his time bummeling, beer drinking, and fighting. If he be the son of a wealthy father, he joins a corps. To belong to a crack corps costs about £400 a year. If he be a middle-class young man, he enrolls himself in a Burschenschaft or a Landsmannschaft, which is still a little cheaper. These companies are again broken up into smaller circles, in which attempt is made to keep to nationality. There are the Swabians, from Swabia, the Franconians, descendants of the Franks, the Thuringians, and so forth. In practice, of course, this results, as all such attempts do result. I believe half our Gordon Highlanders are Cockneys, but the picturesque object is obtained of dividing each university into some dozen or so separate companies of students, each one with its distinctive cap and colours, and, quite as important, its own particular beer hall, into which no other student wearing his colours may come. The chief work of these student companies is to fight among themselves, or with some rival corps or shaft, the celebrated German Mensur. The Mensur has been described so often and so thoroughly that I do not intend to bore my readers with any detailed account of it. I merely come forward as an impressionist, and I write purposely the impression of my first Mensur, because I believe that first impressions are more true and useful than opinions blunted by intercourse or shaped by influence. A Frenchman or a Spaniard will seek to persuade you that the bull ring is an institution got up chiefly for the benefit of the bull. The horse, which you imagined to be screaming with pain, was only laughing at the comical appearance presented by its own inside. Your young French or Spanish friend contrasts its glorious and exciting death in the ring with the cold-blooded brutality of the knacker's yard. If you do not keep a tight hold of your head, you come away with a desire to start an agitation for the inception of the bull ring in England as an aid to chivalry. No doubt Torquemada was convinced of the humanity of the Inquisition. To a stout gentleman, suffering perhaps from cramp or rheumatism, an hour or so on the rack was really a physical benefit. He would rise feeling more free in his joints, more elastic, as one might say, than he had felt for years. English huntsmen regard the fox as an animal to be envied. A day's excellent sport is provided for him free of charge, during which he is the centre of attraction. Use blinds one to everything one does not wish to see. Every third German gentleman you meet in the street still bears, and will bear to his grave, marks of the 20 to 100 duels he has fought in his student days. The German children play at the Mensur in the nursery, rehearse it in the gymnasium. The Germans have come to persuade themselves there is no brutality in it, nothing offensive, nothing degrading. Their argument is that it schools the German youth to coolness and courage. If this could be proved, the argument, particularly in a country where every man is a soldier, would be sufficiently one-sided. But it is the virtue of the prize-fighter. But is the virtue of the prize-fighter the virtue of the soldier? One doubts it. Nerve and dash are surely more service in the field than a temperament of unreasoning indifference as to what is happening to one. As a matter of fact, the German student would have to be possessed of much more courage not to fight. He fights not to please himself, but to satisfy a public opinion that is 200 years behind the times. All the Mensur does is to brutalize him. There may be skill displayed. I am told there is, but it is not apparent. The mere fighting is like nothing so much as a broadsword combat at a Richardson show. The display as a whole a successful attempt to combine the ludicrous with the unpleasant. In aristocratic Bonn, where the style is considered, and in Heidelberg, where visitors from other nations are more common, the affair is perhaps more formal. I am told that there the contests take place in handsome rooms, that grey-haired doctors wait upon the wounded, and liveried servants upon the hungry, and that the affair is conducted throughout with a certain amount of picturesque ceremony. In the more essentially German universities, where strangers are rare and not much encouraged, the simple essentials are the only things kept in view, and these are not of an inviting nature. Indeed, so divisively uninviting are they that I strongly advise the sensitive reader to avoid even this description of them. The subject cannot be made pretty, and I do not intend to try. The room is bare and sordid, its walls splashed with mixed stains of beer, blood, and candle grease, its ceiling smoky, its floor sawdust-covered. A crowd of students, laughing, smoking, talking, some sitting on the floor, others perched upon chairs and benches, form the framework. In the centre, facing one another, stand the combatants, resembling Japanese warriors, as made famous to us by the Japanese tea tray. Quaint and rigid, with their goggle-covered eyes, their necks tied up in comforters, their bodies smothered in what looks like dirty bed-quilts, their padded arms stretched straight above their heads, they might be a pair of ungainly clockwork figures. The seconds also are more or less padded, their heads and faces protected by huge leather-peaked caps, drag them out into their proper position. One almost listens to hear the sound of the casters. The umpire takes his place, the word is given, and immediately there follow 5 rapid clashes of the long straight swords. There is no interest in watching the fight. There is no movement, no skill, no grace. I am speaking of my own impressions. The strongest man wins. The man who, with his heavily padded arm always in an unnatural position, can hold his huge clumsy sword longest without growing too weak to be able either to guard or to strike. The whole interest is centred in watching the wounds. They come always in one of 2 places, on the top of the head or the left side of the face. Sometimes a portion of hairy scalp or section of cheek flies up into the air, to be carefully preserved in an envelope by its proud possessor, or, strictly speaking, its proud former possessor, and shown round on convivial evenings. And from every wound, of course, flows a plentiful stream of blood. It splashes doctors, seconds, and spectators. It sprinkles ceilings and walls. It saturates the fighters and makes pools for itself in the sawdust. At the end of each round, the doctors rush up and, with hands already dripping with blood, press together the gaping wounds, dabbing them with little balls of wet cotton wool, which an attendant carries ready on a plate. Naturally, the moment the men stand up again and commence work, the blood gushes out again, half blinding them, and rendering the ground beneath them slippery. Now and then you see a man's teeth laid bare almost to the ear, so that for the rest of the duel he appears to be grinning at one half of the spectators, his other side remaining serious. And sometimes a man's nose gets slit, which gives to him as he fights a singularly supercilious air. Joey does now wish to come in, so 1 second. I return, and 1 second. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Last one. Mic a little bit. Okay. You gonna settle? I was reading. I think... Sorry for mic noise as I bring it back. I think that's the extent of his vocabulary. I know now well enough that when he jumps up on things, he loves to have a chat. He loves to talk about what he's just done. And that was that. Hey. And then he'll like purr. Joey, chat wishes you to know, sorry. Chat would like you to know that they love you. Yeah? Sorry for the spotlight. I literally mean that, like, the little light that I have, which is pointed at where he is sitting. Right. Where were we? People getting hacked up to bits by swords. There we go. Let us continue. As the object of each student is to go away from the university bearing as many scars as possible, I doubt if any particular pains are taken to guard, or even to the small extent such a method of fighting can allow. The real victor is he who comes out with the greatest number of wounds. He who then, stitched and patched almost to unrecognition as a human being, can promenade for the next month, the envy of the German youth, the admiration of the German maiden. He who obtained only a few unimportant wounds retires sulky and disappointed. But the actual fighting is only the beginning of the fun. The second act of the spectacle takes place in the dressing room. The doctors are generally mere medical students, young fellows who, having taken their degree, are anxious for practice. Truth compels me to say that those with whom I came into contact were coarse-looking men who seemed rather to relish their work. Perhaps they are not to be blamed for this. It is part of the system that as much further punishment as possible must be inflicted by the doctor, and the ideal medical man might hardly care for such a job. How the student bears the dressing of his wounds is as important as how he receives them. Every operation has to be performed as brutally as may be, and his companions carefully watch him during the process to see that he goes through it with an appearance of peace and enjoyment. A clean-cut wound that gapes wide is most desired by all parties. On purpose it is sewn up clumsily with the hope that by this means the scar will last a lifetime. Such a wound, judiciously mauled and interfered with during the weeks afterwards, can generally be reckoned on to secure its fortunate possessor a wife with a dowry of 5 figures at the least. Those are the general bi-weekly mensures, of which the average student fights some dozen a year. There are others to which visitors are not admitted. When a student is considered to have disgraced himself by some slight involuntary movement of the head or body while fighting, then he can only regain his position by standing up to the best swordsman in his corps. He demands, and is accorded, not a contest, but a punishment. His opponent then proceeds to inflict as many and as bloody wounds as can be taken. The object of the victim is to show his comrades that he can stand still while his head is half sliced from his skull. Whether anything can properly be said in favour of the German mensur I am doubtful. But if so, it concerns only the two combatants. Upon the spectators it can, and does, I am convinced, exercise nothing but evil. I know myself sufficiently well to be sure I am not of an unusually bloodthirsty disposition. The effect it had upon me can only be the usual effect. At first, before the actual work commenced, my sensation was curiosity mingled with anxiety as to how the sight would trouble me. Though some slight acquaintance with dissecting rooms and operating tables left me less doubt on that point than I might otherwise have felt. As the blood began to flow, and nerves and muscles to be laid bare, I experienced a mingling of disgust and pity. but with the second duel, I must confess, my finer feelings began to disappear, and by the time the third was well upon its way, and the room heavy with the curious hot odour of blood, I began, as the American expression is, to see things red. I wanted more. I looked from face to face surrounding me, and in most of them I found reflected undoubtedly my own sensations. If it be a good thing to excite this bloodthirst in the modern man, then the Mensa is a useful institution. But is it a good thing? We prate about our civilization and humanity, but those of us who do not carry hypocrisy to the length of self-deception know that underneath our starched shirts there lurks the savage, with all his savage instincts untouched. Occasionally he may be wanted, but we never need fear his dying out. On the other hand, it seems unwise to overnourish him. In favour of the duel, seriously considered, there are many points to be urged. But the Mensa serves no good purpose whatever. It is childishness, and the fact of its being a cruel and brutal game makes it none the less childish. Wounds have no intrinsic value of their own. It is the cause that dignifies them, not their size. William Tell is rightly one of the heroes of the world, but what should we think of the members of a club of fathers formed with the object of meeting twice a week to shoot apples from their sons' heads with crossbows? These young German gentlemen could obtain all the results of which they are so proud by teasing a wildcat. To join a society for the mere purpose of getting yourself hacked about reduces a man to the intellectual level of a dancing dervish. The Mensa is, in fact, the reductio ad absurdum of the duel, and if the Germans themselves cannot see that it is funny, one can only regret their lack of humour. But, though one may be unable to agree with the public opinion that supports and commands the Mensa, it at least is possible to understand. The university code that, if it does not encourage it, at least condones drunkenness, is more difficult to treat argumentatively. All German students do not get drunk, in fact. In fact, the majority are sober, if not industrious. But the minority, whose claim to be representative is freely admitted, are only saved from perpetual inebriety. I had this earlier and I just completely stumbled over it. Inebriety by ability, acquired at some cost, to swill half the day and all the night, while retaining to some extent their five senses. It does not affect all alike, but it is common in any university town to see a young man not yet 20, with the figure of a Falstaff and the complexion of a Rubens Bacchus. That the German maiden can be fascinated with a face, cut and gashed till it suggests having been made out of odd materials that never could have fitted, is a proved fact. But surely there can be no attraction about a blotched and bloated skin and a bay window thrown out to an extent threatening to overbalance the whole structure. Yet, what else can be expected when the youngster starts his beer-drinking with a Frühschoppen at 10 a.m. and closes with a Kneipe at 4 in the morning? The Kneipe is what we should call a stag party, and can be very harmless or very rowdy, according to its composition. One man invites his fellow students, a dozen or 100, to a cafe, and provides them with as much beer and as many cheap cigars as their own sense of health and comfort may dictate, or the host may be the corps itself. Here, as everywhere, you observe the German sense of discipline and order, and as each newcomer enters, all those sitting round the table rise, and with heels close together salute. When the table is complete, a chairman is chosen, whose duty it is to give out the number of the songs. Printed books of these songs, one to each 2 men, lie round the table. The chairman gives out number 29. "First verse," he cries, and away all go, each 2 men holding a book between them, exactly as 2 people might hold a hymn book in a church. There is a pause at the end of each verse until the chairman starts the company on the next. As every German is a trained singer, and most of them have fair voices, the general effect is striking. Although the manner may be suggestive of the singing of hymns in church, the words of the songs are occasionally such as to correct this impression. But whether it be a song, a sentimental ballad, or a ditty of a nature that would shock the average young Englishman, all are sung through with stern earnestness, without a laugh, without a false note. At the end, the chairman calls "Prosit!" Everyone answers "Prosit!" and the next moment every glass is empty. The pianist rises and bows, and is bowed to in return, and then the Fräulein enters to refill the glasses. Between the songs, toasts are proposed and responded to, but there is little cheering and less laughter. Smiles and grave nods of approval are considered as more seeming among German students. A particular toast, called a salamander, accorded to some guest as a special distinction, is drunk with exceptional solemnity. "We will now," says the chairman, "a salamander rub, einen salamander reiben." We all rise and stand like a regiment at attention. "Is the stuff prepared?" "Sind die Stoffe parat?" demands the chairman. "Sunt," we answer with one voice. "Ad exercitum salamandri," says the chairman, and we are ready. "Eins." We rub our glasses with a circular motion on the table. "Zwei." Again the glasses growl. Also at "Drei." "Drink." "Wie bitte." And with mechanical unison every glass is emptied and held on high. "Eins," says the chairman. The foot of every empty glass twirls upon the table, producing a sound as of the dragging back of a stony beach by a receding wave. "Zwei." The roll swells and sinks again. "Drei." The glasses strike the table with a single crash, and we are in our seats again. The sport at the Kneipe is for two students to insult each other, in play, of course, and to then challenge each other to a drinking duel. An umpire is appointed, 2 huge glasses are filled, and the men sit opposite each other with their hands upon the handles, all eyes fixed upon them. The umpire gives the word to go, and in an instant the beer is gurgling down their throats. The man who bangs his perfectly finished glass upon the table first is victor. Strangers who are going through at Kneipe will wish to do the thing in German style, and who wish to do the thing in German style will do well, before commencing proceedings, to pin their name and address upon their coats. The German student is courtesy itself, and whatever his own state may be, he will see to it that, by some means or another, his guests get safely home before the morning. But of course he cannot be expected to remember addresses. A story was told to me by 3 guests to a Berlin Kneipe which might have had tragic results. The strangers determined to do the thing thoroughly. They explained their intention, and were applauded, and each proceeded to write his address upon his card and pin it to the tablecloth in front of him. That was the mistake they made. They should, as I have advised, have pinned it carefully to their coats. A man may change his place at a table, quite unconsciously. He may come out the other side of it. But wherever he goes, he takes his coat with him. Sometime, in the small hours, the chairman suggested that to make things more comfortable for those still upright, all the gentlemen unable to keep their heads off the table should be sent home. Among those to whom the proceedings had become uninteresting were 3 Englishmen. It was decided to put them into a cab in charge of a comparatively speaking sober student, and return them. Had they retained their original seats throughout the evening, all would have been well. But unfortunately they had gone walking about, and which gentleman belongs to which card nobody knew, least of all the guests themselves. In the then state of general cheerfulness, this did not to anybody appear to much matter. There were 3 gentlemen, and 3 addresses. I suppose the idea was that even if a mistake were made, the parties could be sorted out in the morning. Anyhow, the 3 gentlemen were put into a cab. The comparatively speaking sober student took the 3 cards in his hand, and the party started amid the cheers and good wishes of the company. There is this advantage about German beer. It does not make a man drunk, as the word drunk is understood in England. There is nothing objectionable about him. He is simply tired. He does not want to talk. He wants to be let alone, and to go to sleep. It does not matter where. Anywhere. The conductor of the party stopped his cab at the nearest address. He took out his worst case. It was a natural instinct to get rid of that first. He and the cabman carried it upstairs and rang the bell of the pension. A sleepy porter answered it. They carried their burden in and looked for a place to drop it. A bedroom door happened to be open. The room was empty. Could anything be better? They took it in there. They relieved it of such things as came off easily and laid it in the bed. This done, both men, pleased with themselves, returned to the cab. At the next address they stopped again. This time, in answer to their summons, a lady appeared, dressed in a tea-gown, with a book in her hand. The German student looked at the top of one of 2 cards remaining in his hand, and inquired if he had the pleasure of addressing Frau Y. It happened that he had, though so far as any pleasure was concerned, that appeared to be entirely on his side. He explained to Frau Y. that the gentleman at the moment asleep against the wall was her husband. The reunion moved her to no enthusiasm. She simply opened the bedroom door and then walked away. The cabman and the student took him in and laid him on the bed. They did not trouble to undress him. They were feeling tired. They did not see the lady of the house again, and retired therefore without adieus. The last card was that of a bachelor stopping at an hotel. They took their last man, therefore, to that hotel, passed him over to the night porter, and left him. To return to the address at which the first delivery was made, what had happened there was this. Some 8 hours previously had said Mr. X to Mrs. X, "I think I told you, dear, that I had an invitation for this evening to what, I believe, is called a Kniper." "You did mention something of the sort," replied Mrs. X. "What is a Kniper?" "Well, it's a sort of bachelor party, my dear, where the students meet to sing and talk and smoke, and all that sort of thing, you know." "Oh, well, I hope you will enjoy yourself," said Mrs. X, who was a nice woman and sensible. "It'll be interesting," observed Mr. X. "I've often had a curiosity to see one." "I may," continued Mr. X. "I mean, it is possible that I may be home a little late." "What do you call late?" asked Mrs. X. "It is somewhat difficult to say," returned Mr. X. "You see, these students, they are a wild lot, and when they get drunk together, and then I believe a good many toasts are drunk. I don't know how it will affect me. If I can see an opportunity, I shall come away early. That is, if I can do so without giving offence. But if not," said Mrs. X, who, as I remarked before, was a sensible woman, "you had better get the people here to lend you a latchkey. I shall sleep with Dolly, and then you won't disturb me, whatever time it may be." "I think that is an excellent idea of yours," agreed Mr. X. "I should hate disturbing you. I shall just come in quietly and slip into bed." Some time in the middle of the night, or maybe towards the early morning, Dolly, who was Mrs. X's sister, sat up in bed and listened. "Jenny," said Dolly, "are you awake?" "Yes, dear," answered Mrs. X. "All right, you go to sleep again." "But whatever is it?" asked Dolly. "Do you think it's fire?" "I expect," answered Mrs. X, "that it's Percy. Very possibly he has stumbled over something in the dark. Don't you worry, dear, you go to sleep." But so soon as Dolly had dozed off again, Mrs. X, who was a good wife, thought she would steal off softly and see to it that Percy was all right. So, putting on a dressing gown and slippers, she crept along the passage and into her own room. To awake the gentleman on the bed would have required an earthquake. She lit a candle and stole over to the bedside. It was not Percy. It was not anyone like Percy. She felt it was not the man that ever could have been her husband under any circumstances. In his present condition, her sentiment towards him was that of positive dislike. Her only desire was to get rid of him. But something there was about him which seemed familiar to her. She went nearer and took a closer view. Then she remembered. Surely it was Mr. Y, a gentleman at whose flat she and Percy had dined the day they first arrived in Berlin. But what was he doing here? She put a candle on the table and, taking her head between her hands, sat down to think. The explanation of the thing came to her with a rush. It was with this Mr. Y that Percy had gone to the Kneipe. A mistake had been made. Mr. Y had been brought back to Percy's address. Percy, at this very moment! The terrible possibilities of the situation swam before her. Returning to Dolly's room, she dressed herself hastily and silently crept downstairs. Finding, fortunately, a passing nightcab, she drove to the address of Mrs. Y. Telling the man to wait, she flew upstairs and rang persistently at the bell. It was opened, as before, by Mrs. Y, still in her tea-gown, and with her book still in her hand. "Mrs. X!" exclaimed Mrs. Y, "whatever brings you here?" "My husband," was all poor Mrs. X could think to say at the moment. "Is he here?" "Mrs. X," returned Mrs. Y, drawing herself up to her full height, "how dare you?" "Oh, please don't misunderstand me," pleaded Mrs. X. "It's all a terrible mistake. They must have brought poor Percy here instead of to our place. I'm sure they must. Do please look and see." "My dear," said Mrs. Y, who was a much older woman and more motherly, "don't excite yourself. They brought him here about half an hour ago, and, to tell the truth, I never even looked at him. He is in here. I don't think they troubled to take his boots off. If you keep cool, we will get him downstairs and home without a soul beyond ourselves being any the wiser." Indeed, Mrs. Y seemed quite eager to help Mrs. X. She pushed open the door, and Mrs. X went in. The next moment she came out with a white, scared face. "It isn't Percy," she said. "Whatever am I to do?" "I wish you wouldn't make these mistakes," said Mrs. Y, moving to enter the room herself. Mrs. X stopped her. "And it isn't your husband either." "Nonsense," said Mrs. Y. "It isn't, really," persisted Mrs. X. "I know, because I have just left him asleep on Percy's bed." "What's he doing there?" thundered Mrs. Y. "They brought him there, and put him there," explained Mrs. X, beginning to cry. "That's what made me think Percy must be here." The two women stood and looked at one another, and there was silence for a while, broken only by the snoring of the gentleman the other side of the half-open door. "Then who is that in there?" demanded Mrs. Y, who was the first to recover herself. "I don't know," answered Mrs. X. "I have never seen him before. Do you think it is anybody you know?" But Mrs. Y only banged to the door. "What are we going to do?" asked Mrs. X. "I know what I am going to do," said Mrs. Y. "I am coming back with you to fetch my husband." "He's very sleepy," explained Mrs. X. "I've known him to be that before," replied Mrs. Y as she fastened on her cloak. "But where's Percy?" sobbed poor little Mrs. X as they descended the stairs together. "That, my dear," said Mrs. Y, "will be a question for you to ask him." "If they go about making mistakes like this," said Mrs. X, "it is impossible to say what they may not have done with him." "We will make inquiries in the morning, my dear," said Mrs. Y consolingly. "I think these Knipers are disgraceful affairs," said Mrs. X. "I shall never let Percy go to another. Never. So long as I live." "My dear," remarked Mrs. Y, "if you know your duty, he will never want to." And rumour has it that he never did. But, as I have said, the mistake was in pinning the card to the tablecloth instead of to the coat. An error, and error in this world is always severely punished. And that is where we're going to take another break before we come back for the last chapter, which is chapter 14. So, yeah, grief, it's already 11:30. Right. Let's go. It's break time. See you back here in 5 minutes. The end of the book. Bye for now. And we are back. Hello. And hello, Stephen. Welcome in. As sneaking in late. I mean, same. Stream is still going because we're trying to finish this off. Yeah, I like clicking through to the Wikipedia page about the German Mensur, the sort of university sanctioned, not even dueling, just stabbing another man's face with a sword while he tries to stab yours as a sport. I'm actually astounded how just accurate a description he has got of it in this book. I thought there would be some, I thought I expected some measure of exaggeration, embellishment perhaps, like some amount of the way, you know, you just stand there and swing a sword at another person's face. And even his description of, like, generally the wounds happen around the head and face. And then you go read the Wikipedia page and it's like, no, this is literally exactly it. You just kind of stand at arm's length with another person, swinging a sword at their face, because everything else is covered up. And so you're literally trying to cut up and scar their face and head as a badge of honor. Like, you're not, if you flinch, if you duck out the way, you've disgraced yourself. You are letting them hit you so that you get scarred and people go, ooh, cool scars. Like, for a book that purports to deliberately teach you nothing, I've learned things and it's horrifying. I did not know this. And apparently that it's just folks used to fake scar too. I don't blame them. I would, rather than actually just let someone go up my face with a sword. That's not get real scars but pretend they're fenced. Oh right, yeah. I mean, I can see that too. Sorry, one sec. Joey wishes. But if he returns, we get more cat sounds, so there's that to look forward to. Reference in a technical difficulties episode, but they didn't mention the name. They never thought to look it up. Didn't realise it was as widespread. No, I am learning something about, like, actual legit German history and culture. Apparently, where some film and TV got the enemy officer with the face scar idea. Well, that's another thing as well. Seeing on Wikipedia where it's like, it's still like they still do this today. It's still a thing, like, ongoing, but it's like the scars are less prominent, but due to improvements in medical technology. And, like, what if we just didn't go at each other's faces with a sword for the fun of making scars? We could not do that. How about that? Here's a thought. Just a curveball. How are you going to deal with that? But anyway, yeah, welcome in. What if no cutty face? It's a bold and ambitious platform. Let's see how well it does. But yeah, we come to the last chapter of the book. We're here at the end. So if we're ready, you joined at a great time. You really did. Yeah, we just have, frankly, a little bit to go. Because, as I was saying at the start, this doesn't really divide up neatly or evenly. It didn't fit 2 streams, and it didn't really fit like 3 evenly distributed breaks. So I just thought I'd just put my head down and plow on through to the end, which is where we are now. So if we're ready, this is from chapter 14 if you wanted to read along. You're going to duck out in about 10 minutes, so you'll probably catch the end of the VOD. But before you go, thanks for the stream. Well, thank you for being here. Yeah, you're welcome. Honestly, I feel like I'm coping much better with reading this long than I thought I would have done. So I'm kind of pleased with how this is going. But yeah, if we're ready, we don't start, we'll never finish it. So this is chapter 14 of 3 Men on the Bummel by Jerome K. Jerome. Which is serious, as becomes a parting chapter. The German from the Anglo-Saxon's point of view. Providence in buttons and a helmet. paradise of the helpless idiot. German conscience, its aggressiveness. How they hang in Germany, very possibly. What happens to good Germans when they die? The military instinct, is it all sufficient? The German as a shopkeeper. How he supports life. The new woman, here as everywhere. What can be said against the Germans as a people? The Bummel is over and done. "Anybody could rule this country," said George. "I could rule it." We were seated in the garden of the Kaiserhof at Bonn, looking down upon the Rhine. It was the last evening of our Bummel. The early morning train would be the beginning of the end. "I should write down all I wanted the people to do on a piece of paper," continued George. "Get a good firm to print off so many copies, have 'em posted about the towns and villages, and the thing would be done." In the placid, docile German of today, whose only ambition appears to be to pay his taxes and do what he is told to do by those whom it has pleased Providence to place in authority over him, it is difficult, one must confess, to detect any trace of his wild ancestor, to whom individual liberty was as the breath of his nostrils, who appointed his magistrate to advise, but retained the right of execution for the tribe, who followed his chief, but would have scorned to obey him. In Germany today one hears a good deal concerning socialism, but it is a socialism that would only be despotism under another name. Individualism makes no appeal to the German voter. He is willing, nay anxious, to be controlled and regulated in all things. He disputes, not government, but the form of it. The policeman is to him a religion, and, one feels, will always remain so. In England we regard our man in blue as a harmless necessity. By the average citizen he is employed chiefly as a signpost, though in busy quarters of the town he is considered useful for taking old ladies across the road. Beyond feeling thankful to him for these services, I doubt if we take much thought of him. In Germany, on the other hand, he is worshipped as a little god and loved as a guardian angel. To the German child he is a combination of Santa Claus and the bogeyman. All good things come from him. Spielplätze to play in, furnished with swings and giant strides, sand heaps to fight around, swimming baths and fairs, all misbehaviour is punished by him. It is the hope of every well-meaning German boy and girl to please the police. To be smiled at by a policeman makes it conceited. A German child that has been patted on the head by a policeman is not fit to live with. Its self-importance is unbearable. The German citizen is a soldier, and the policeman is his officer. The policeman directs him where in the street to walk and how fast to walk. At the end of each bridge stands a policeman to tell the German how to cross it. Were there no policeman there, he would probably sit down and wait till the river had passed by. At the railway station the policeman locks himself up in the waiting room where he can do no harm to himself. When the proper time arrives, he fetches him out and hands him over to the guard of the train, who is only a policeman in another uniform. The guard tells him where to get out, and sees that he does get out. In Germany you take no responsibility upon yourself whatever. Everything is done for you, and done well. You are not supposed to look after yourself. You are not blamed for being incapable of looking after yourself. It is the duty of the German policeman to look after you. That you may be a helpless idiot does not excuse him should anything happen to you. Wherever you are, and whatever you are doing, you are in his charge, and he takes care of you. Good care of you. There is no denying this. If you lose yourself, he finds you, and if you lose anything belonging to you, he recovers it for you. If you don't know what you want, he tells you, and if you want anything that is good for you to have, he gets it for you. Private lawyers are not needed in Germany. If you want to buy or sell a house or field, the state makes out the conveyance. If you have been swindled, the state takes up the case for you. The state marries you, insures you, will even gamble with you for a trifle. You get yourself born, says the German government to the German citizen, we do the rest. Indoors and out of doors, in sickness and in health, in pleasure and in work, we will tell you what to do, and we will see to it that you do it. Don't you worry yourself about anything. And the German doesn't. Where there is no policeman to be found, he wanders about till he comes to a police notice posted on a wall. This he reads. Then he goes and does what it says. I remember in one German town, I forget which, it is immaterial, the incident could have happened in any, noticing an open gate leading to a garden in which a concert was being given. There was nothing to prevent anyone who chose from walking through the gate, and thus gaining admittance to the concert without paying. In fact, 2 of the gates, a quarter of a mile apart, it was more convenient. Of the 2 gates, a quarter of a mile apart, it was the more convenient. Yet, of the crowds that passed, not one attempted to enter by that gate. They plodded steadily on under a blazing sun to the other gate, at which a man stood to collect the entrance money. I have seen German youngsters stand longingly by the margin of a lonely sheet of ice. They could have skated on that ice for hours, and nobody would have been the wiser. The crowd and the police were at the other end, more than half a mile away, and round the corner. Nothing stopped their going on but the knowledge that they ought not. Things such as these make one pause to seriously wonder whether the Teuton be a member of the sinful human family or not. Is it not possible that these placid, gentle folk may in reality be angels, come down to earth for the sake of a glass of beer, which, as they must know, can only in Germany be obtained worth the drinking? In Germany the country roads are lined with fruit trees. There is no voice to stay man or boy from picking and eating the fruit, except conscience. In England, such a state of things would cause public indignation. Children would die of cholera by the 100. The medical profession would be worked off its legs trying to cope with the natural results of overindulgence in sour apples and unripe walnuts. Public opinion would demand that these fruit trees should be fenced about and thus rendered harmless. Fruit growers, to save themselves the expense of walls and palings, would not be allowed in this manner to spread sickness and death throughout the community. But in Germany, a boy will walk for miles down a lonely road, hedged with fruit trees, to buy a pennyworth of pears in the village at the other end. To pass these unprotected fruit trees, drooping under their burden of ripe fruit, strikes the Anglo-Saxon mind as a wicked waste of opportunity, a flouting of the blessed gifts of Providence. I do not know if it be so, but from what I have observed of the German character, I should not be surprised to hear that when a man in Germany is condemned to death, he is given a piece of rope and told to go hang himself. It would save the state much trouble and expense, and I can see that German criminal taking that piece of rope home with him, reading up carefully the police instructions, and proceeding to carry them out in his own back kitchen. The Germans are good people. On the whole, the best people perhaps in the world. An amiable, unselfish, kindly people. I am positive that the vast majority of them go to heaven. Indeed, comparing them with the other Christian nations of the earth, one is forced to the conclusion that heaven will be chiefly of German manufacture. But I cannot understand how they get there. That the soul of any single individual German has sufficient initiative to fly up by itself and knock at St. Peter's door, I cannot believe. My own opinion is that they are taken there in small companies and passed in under the charge of a dead policeman. Carlyle said of the Prussians, and it is true of the whole German nation, that one of their chief virtues was their power of being drilled. Of the Germans you might say that they are a people who will go anywhere or do anything they are told. Drill him for the work, and send him out to Africa or Asia under the charge of somebody in uniform, and he is bound to make an excellent colonist, facing difficulties he would face as he would face the devil himself if ordered. But it is not easy to conceive of him as a pioneer. Left to run himself, one feels he would soon fade away and die, not from any lack of intelligence, but from sheer want of presumption. The German has so long been the soldier of Europe that the military instinct has entered into his blood. The military virtues he possesses in abundance, but he also suffers from the drawbacks of the military training. It was told to me of a German servant, lately released from the barracks, that he was instructed by his master to deliver a letter to a certain house, and to wait there for the answer. The hours passed by, and the man did not return. His master, anxious and surprised, followed. He found the man where he had been sent, the answer in his hand. He was waiting for further orders. The story sounds exaggerated, but personally I can credit it. The curious thing is that the same man, who as an individual is as helpless as a child, becomes, the moment he puts on the uniform, an intelligent being, capable of responsibility and initiative. The German can rule others and be ruled by others, but he cannot rule himself. The cure would appear to be to train every German for an officer, and then put him under himself. It is certain he would order himself about with discretion and judgment, and see to it that he himself obeyed himself with smartness and precision. For the direction of German character into these channels, the schools, of course, are chiefly responsible. Their everlasting teaching is duty. It is a fine ideal for any people, but before buckling to it, one would wish to have a clear understanding as to what his duty is. The German idea of it would appear to be blind obedience to everything in buttons. It is the antithesis of the Anglo-Saxon scheme. But, as both the Anglo-Saxon and the Teuton are prospering, there must be good in both methods. Hitherto, the German has had the blessed fortune to be exceptionally well governed. If this continues, it will go well with him. When his troubles will begin, will be when by any chance something goes wrong with the governing machine. But maybe his method has the advantage of producing a continuous supply of good governors. It would certainly seem so. As a trader, I am inclined to think the German will, unless his temperament considerably change, remain always a long way behind his Anglo-Saxon competitor, and this by reason of his virtues. To him, life is something more important than a mere race for wealth. A country that closes its banks and post offices for 2 hours in the middle of the day, while it goes home and enjoys a comfortable meal in the bosom of its family, with perhaps 40 winks by way of dessert, cannot cope, and possibly has no wish, to compete with a people that takes its meals standing, and sleeps with a telephone over its bed. In Germany there is not, at all events as yet, sufficient distinction between the classes to make the struggle for position the life and death affair it is in England. Beyond the landed aristocracy, whose boundaries are impregnable, grade hardly counts. Frau Professor and Frau Candlestick Maker meet at the weekly Café Klatsch, and exchange scandal on terms of mutual equality. The livery stable keeper and the doxer hobnob together in their favourite beer hall. The wealthy master builder, when he prepares his roomy wagon for an excursion into the country, invites his foreman and his tailor to join him with their families. Each brings his share of drink and provisions, and returning home they sing in a chorus the same songs. So long as this state of things endures, a man is not induced to sacrifice the best years of his life to win a fortune for his dotage. His tastes, and, more to the point still, his wife's, remain inexpensive. He likes to see his flat or villa furnished, with much red plush upholstery and a profusion of gilt and lacquer. But this is his idea, and maybe it is in no worse taste than is a mixture of bastard Elizabethan with imitation Louis XV, and whole lit by electric light and smothered by photographs. Possibly he will have his outer walls painted by the local artist, a sanguinary battle, a good deal interfered with by the front door, taking place below, while Bismarck as an angel flutters vaguely about the bedroom windows. But for his old masters he is quite content to go to the public galleries, and the celebrity at home, not having as yet taken its place amongst the institutions of the fatherland, he is not impelled to waste his money turning the house into an old curiosity shop. The German is a gourmand. There are still English farmers who, while telling you that farming spells starvation, enjoy their 7 solid meals a day. Once a year there comes a week's feast throughout Russia, during which many deaths occur from the overeating of pancakes. But this is a religious festival and an exception. Taking him all round, the German as a trencherman stands preeminent among the nations of the earth. He rises early, and while dressing tosses off a few cups of coffee together with half a dozen hot buttered rolls, but it is not until 10 o'clock that he sits down to anything that can properly be called a meal. At 1 or half past takes place his chief dinner. Of this he makes a business, sitting at it for a couple of hours. At 4 o'clock he goes to the cafe and eats cakes and drinks chocolate. The evening he devotes to eating generally, not a set meal, or rarely, but a series of snacks, a bottle of beer, and a Bellegetesemmel, or two, at 7, say, another bottle of beer and an Aufschnitt at the theatre between the acts, a small bottle of white wine and a Spiegeleier before going home, then a piece of cheese or sausage washed down by more beer, previous to turning in for the night. But he is no gourmet. French cooks and French prices are not the rule at his restaurant. His beer or his inexpensive native white wine he prefers to the most costly clarets or champagnes, and indeed it is well for him he does, for one is inclined to think that every time a French grower sells a bottle of wine to a German hotel or shopkeeper, Sedan is rankling in his mind. It is a foolish revenge, seeing that it is not the German who as a rule drinks it. The punishment falls upon some innocent travelling Englishman. Maybe, however, the French dealer also remembers Waterloo, and feels that in any event he scores. In Germany, expensive entertainments are neither offered nor expected. Everything throughout the fatherland is homely and friendly. The German has no costly sports to pay for, no showy establishment to maintain, no purse-proud circle to dress for. His chief pleasure, a seat at the opera or concert, can be had for a few marks, and his wife and daughters walk there in homemade dresses with shawls over their heads. Indeed, throughout the country, the absence of all ostentation is to English eyes quite refreshing. Private carriages are few and far between, and even the droshky is made use of only when the quicker and cleaner electric car is not available. By such means, the German retains his independence. The shopkeeper in Germany does not fawn upon his customers. I accompanied an English lady once on a shopping excursion in Munich. She had been accustomed to shopping in London and New York, and she grumbled at everything the man showed her. It was not that she was really dissatisfied. This was her method. She explained that she could get most things cheaper and better elsewhere. Not that she really thought she could, merely she held it good for the shopkeeper to say this. She told him that his stock lacks taste. She did not mean to be offensive, as I have explained. It was her method, that there was no variety about it, that it was not up to date, that it was commonplace, that it looked as if it would not wear. He did not argue with her. He did not contradict her. He put the things back into their respective boxes, replaced the boxes onto their respective shelves, walked into the little parlour behind the shop, and closed the door. "Isn't he ever coming back?" asked the lady after a couple of minutes had elapsed. Her tone did not imply a question so much as an exclamation of mere impatience. "I doubt it," I replied. "Why not?" she asked, much astonished. "I expect," I answered, "you have bored him. In all probability he is at this moment behind that door smoking a pipe and reading the paper." "What an extraordinary shopkeeper!" said my friend, as she gathered her parcels together and indignantly walked out. On another occasion, I listened in the smoke-room of a German hotel to a small Englishman telling a tale which, had I been in his place, I should have kept to myself. "It doesn't do," said the little Englishman, "to try and beat a German down. They don't seem to understand it. I saw a first edition of The Robbers in a shop in Georgplatz. I went in and asked the price. It was a rum old chap behind the counter. He said 25 marks and went on reading. I told him I had seen a better copy only a few days before for 20. One talks like that when one is bargaining, it is understood. He asked me, 'Where?' I told him in a shop in Leipzig. He suggested my returning there and getting it. He didn't seem to care whether I bought the book or whether I didn't. I said, "What's the least you will take for it?" "I have told you once," he answered, 25 marks. He was an irritable old chap. I said, "It's not worth it." "I never said it was, did I?" he snapped. "I said, I'll give you 10 marks for it." I thought maybe he would end by taking 20. He rose. I took it he was coming round the counter to get the book out. Instead, he came straight up to me. He was a biggish sort of man. He took me by the 2 shoulders, walked me out into the street, and closed the door behind me with a bang. I was never more surprised in all my life. "Maybe the book was worth 25 marks, I suggested. "Of course it was," he replied. "Well worth it. But what a notion of business." If anything can change the German character, it will be the German woman. She herself is changing rapidly, advancing, as we call it. 10 years ago, no German woman caring for her reputation, hoping for a husband, would have dared to ride a bicycle. Today they spin about the country in their thousands. The old folks shake their heads at them, but the young men, I notice, overtake them and ride beside them. Not long ago it's considered unwomanly in Germany for a lady to be able to do the outside edge. Her proper skating attitude was thought to be that of clinging limpness to some male relative. Now she practices 8s in a corner by herself until some young man comes along to help her. She plays tennis, and, from a point of safety, I have even noticed her driving a dog-cart. Brilliantly educated she always has been. At 18, she speaks 2 or 3 languages and has forgotten more than the average Englishwoman has ever read. Hitherto, this education has been utterly useless to her. On marriage, she has retired into the kitchen and made haste to clear her brain of everything else in order to leave room for bad cooking. But suppose it begins to dawn upon her that a woman need not sacrifice her whole existence to household drudgery any more than a man need make himself nothing else than a business machine. Suppose she develop an ambition to take part in the social and national life. Then the influence of such a partner, healthy in body and therefore vigorous in mind, is bound to be both lasting and far-reaching. For it must be borne in mind that the German man is exceptionally sentimental and most easily influenced by his womenfolk. It is said of him, he is the best of lovers, the worst of husbands. This has been the woman's fault. Once married, the German woman has done more than put romance behind her. He has taken a carpet beater and driven it out of the house. As a girl, she never understood dressing. As a wife, she takes off such clothes even as she had, and proceeds to wrap herself up in any odd articles she may happen to find about the house. At all events, this is the impression she produces. The figure that might often be that of a Juno, the complexion that would sometimes do credit to a healthy angel, she proceeds of malice and intent to spoil. She sells her birthright of admiration and devotion for a mess of sweets. Every afternoon you may see her at the cafe loading herself with rich cream-covered cakes, washed down by copious draughts of chocolate. In a short time she becomes fat, pasty, placid, and utterly uninteresting. When the German woman gives up her afternoon coffee and her evening beer, takes sufficient exercise to retain her shape, and continues to read after marriage something else than the cookery book, the German government will find it has a new and unknown force to deal with. And everywhere throughout Germany one is confronted by unmistakable signs that the old German Frauen are given place to the newer Damen. Concerning what will happen one feels curious, for the German nation is still young, and its maturity is of importance to the world. They are a good people, a lovable people, who should help much to make the world better. The worst that can be said against them is that they have their failings. They themselves do not know this. They consider themselves perfect, which is foolish of them. They even go so far as to think themselves superior to the Anglo-Saxon. This is incomprehensible. One feels they must be pretending. "They have their points," said George, "but their tobacco is a national sin. I'm going to bed." We rose, and leaning over the low stone parapet, watched the dancing lights upon the soft, dark river. "It's been a pleasant bummel on the owl," said Harris. "I shall be glad to get back, and yet I'm sorry it is over, if you understand me." "What is a bummel?" said George. "How would you translate it?" "A bummel," I explained, "I should describe as a journey, long or short, without an end. The only thing regulating it being the necessity of getting back within a given time to the point from which one started. Sometimes it is through busy streets, and sometimes through the fields and lanes. Sometimes we can be spared for a few hours, and sometimes for a few days. But long or short, but here or there, our thoughts are ever on the running of the sand. We nod and smile to many as we pass. With some we stop and talk a while, and with a few we walk a little way. We have been much interested, and often a little tired. But on the whole, we have had a pleasant time, and are sorry when 'tis over." The end. Thank you for listening. Oops, and then I punched the microphone, as if in thanks to everybody for listening. One second, I'm just going to mute and reposition things. Because, yeah, I feel like that's an interesting last chapter. Obviously, sorry he gets kind of a little bit fat-phobic when describing the disgraceful... It's almost... I'm kind of almost impressively progressive, where he's like, it would actually be nice for these German women to not feel like they've been forced indoors and have to give up all these things they love and are interested in, and frankly, Germany would be for the better of it if when women start getting more involved in the running of society, good. And then he spins into the whole, and just... look at them eating and drinking, but if they give that up, and it's like, no, you were doing so well just for a second, my guy, please. It's like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And yeah, that end, I don't know if you could hear, I genuinely got choked up at that last bit where he's describing the journey. Yeah, that, I don't know. It's a really lovely paragraph. Like that, I'm not an actor. That, what you hear in my voice there, and frankly even now, that got me. It gets me. It's a bit of a product of its time, but also progressive at points. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, again, I'm like, that's what I'm saying. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like, to me, genuinely, for someone of that era to be, and it's not the only time. It's. At other times in the book, he has kind of expressed what felt to me as progressive attitudes towards women and women's rights. And good, actually. That's, surprising. The couple of slightly regressive attitudes towards race, which I skipped over even this evening once or twice, which again, products of the time, unfortunate. Not everybody was like that then, but some people were, and didn't always have the coolest views towards people who weren't white. But yeah, he genuinely seems to have a lot of love and respect for Germans and German people. There's a little bit of they're basically just simple kids who will follow orders. And as I think I glanced up and saw, that is scarily prescient, talking about the pending impacts of Germany on the world and how things could go wrong if the wrong person got in charge and led them in another direction. When was this written again? Because this was before World War One. What is it? 1900. First published in 1900. And yeah, it is as a historical artifact truly fascinating to me, reading this account of pre-World War One Germany, and with the dramatic irony of knowing everything that is to follow in the 50 odd years to follow this book. it's there's a lot to unpack there. And as you say, like, scarily prescient on some of these things that he just sort of casually tosses in offhand, just remarks about people, culture, civilization. You're like, yeah, you got that. Finger curls on the monkey's paw. Like, yeah, boy. Even again, talking about, Germany as it exists as a new nation and stands to have a huge impact on the rest of the world. And like, oh boy, are we still feeling those aftershocks today? Fully 125 years after this was written and observed. So yeah, please stop being right. But yeah, it is 10 past the midnight here, or 11 minutes past even. We don't need to round down. And this has been a marathon stream. But honestly, I'm not feeling nearly as worn out as I would have thought. So that's nice. But I'm going to go. I'm going to take off. So thank you all for being here. We will be back, I believe Lucy is planning to be back on Wednesday with more short stories, I guess is the plan. Haven't discussed, but that will be put on the Discord as information. And yeah, all being well, I should be back next Saturday with a new book. New in the sense that new to the stream, neither new in terms of it's coming into my possession or original publication, because it's all old books all the way down. This will be The Diary of a Nobody, which it's got high praise. It has high praise surrounding it, so we'll see how that goes. But it should be funny, should be good, and I'm looking forward to reading more comedy on the stream, because I like doing that. Fun. Exactly, we finally found out what a Bummel is, and it turns out it's kind of sentimental, and yeah, it's a good note to end on. And so let's on that. Thank you for joining me on this Bummel. Again, it sounds like a crude slang term, but it's not. So it's cool. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good rest of the weekend. What is afforded to you, and yeah, we will see you on Wednesday. Goodbye and good night.